Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Remember to speak into the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded for public record. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All righty, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Cinco de Mayo Planning Board meeting. What's that?
Tacos for lunch?
Tacos for lunch, yes. No, but welcome, everybody, and we're going to start with a motion, hopefully, from one of my board members to approve last month's minutes.
Motion to approve?
Can I get a second?
Second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? All right, and as people can see, we're missing one board member today, but we have a quorum, so we're good. All right, turn it over to the city attorney.
Thank you. Good morning. Today's meeting of the Planning Board is being conducted in a hybrid format with a quorum of the board physically present in the Commission chambers at Miami Beach City Hall, and applicants, staff, and members of the public appearing either in person or virtually via Zoom. Those wishing to participate via Zoom may dial the toll-free number, which is 877-853-5257, and enter the webinar ID, which is 861-4342-6327#. Or log into the Zoom app and enter the webinar ID, which again is 861-4342-6327. Any individual wishing to speak on an item must click the raise hand icon if using the Zoom app, or dial *9 if participating by phone. Before I swear in those who are testifying, I'm going to read into the record the city's notice regarding lobbyist registration. If you are appearing on behalf of a business, a corporation, or another person, including as an architect, attorney, or representative of an applicant or an objector, you need to register as a lobbyist with the city clerk's office before speaking to the board. You do not have to register if you are speaking only on behalf of yourself, you are testifying as an expert witness, providing only scientific, technical, or other specialized testimony, or you are appearing as a representative of a neighborhood association without any compensation or reimbursement for your appearance, to express support for or opposition to any item. Expert witnesses and representatives of neighborhood associations shall, prior to appearing, disclose in writing to the city clerk their name, address, and the principal on whose behalf they are communicating. These rules apply whether you are appearing in favor of or against an item, or encouraging or arguing against its passage, defeat, modification, or continuance. I will now swear in everyone who is physically present in the Commission chambers and intends to testify. Virtual speakers will need to be sworn in one by one before addressing the board. So if you will be giving testimony, please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you will be giving is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, the first thing on the agenda are requests for continuances. The first is Planning Board File 260838, One Ocean Drive Concession Agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The city is recommending this be continued to the June 2nd meeting. There are still certain things that need commission review and further refinement by the city attorney's office.
Okay, is anybody in chambers here to speak on this motion for continuance? No? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, someone want to move
Motion to
it?
continue to the June 2nd meeting?
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so moved. Thank you. Next is progress reports. First is Planning Board File 210442, 743 Washington Avenue, due to recent violations.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is before you today due to 4 recent violations. A little bit of background, this is the Vendome nightclub on Washington Avenue. The initial original conditional use permit was approved by the board in 2008. It was modified last in 2024. The modifications included a new queuing plan and security plan in 2024. They remained relatively violation-free until the end of last year. All 4 violations, strangely enough, were issued for the same reason, which is the requirement to notify the city's police department of any promoted event at least 96 hours in advance of that event. So there were multiple violations issued for that. We also contacted the city's police department to see if there had been any calls for services since the last progress report, and we did. The police department did provide a list of calls for service, which we thought was relevant to the discussion today. It does seem like this property is currently taking a good amount of city resources in terms of the code compliance department and our police department. And, staff is recommending that we discuss this. I'm not sure, a certified cure letter was sent to the property owner or the operator. I'm not sure if there's anyone here representing the business, but I think it's important that we have a conversation and perhaps continue this progress report to either the June or July meeting to see if they can come up with a response. As of today, I have not received a response from the operator.
The 4 violations that you referred to without the 96-hour notification, was that prior to our last meeting with them?
No,
That's since?
those were all since the last progress
So I have a
report.
question. So these are all for the same reason, and they're all within a few days of each other. When you get a code violation, like say number 1 on July 6th, when do they get that violation? That day?
Yes,
So people become aware of it that day?
correct.
So they knew on July 6th they had to do that, and then you're telling me a week later they did it again? And then a
Yes.
day later they did it again?
Correct,
So the violations don't come weeks later, they were at that time?
correct.
All right, that's a problem, okay.
And these are in 2025?
Yes.
So why are we now looking at this?
It recently it came to the planning department's attention within the past month.
When were they back, when were they here? Like, we dealt with them,
A few months ago.
it wasn't a year ago.
No, it was probably 3 months
So I
ago.
guess right, so were these, did the planning department, do we not know about these the last time we discussed
The
them?
last time the planning board heard it, from my records, was at the end of 2024,
Oh,
Right. a few months
September of
ago.
2024.
no,
5 months ago.
2024.
Oh, no.
In the
There
previous
was
year.
something recent.
No, we.
No, it was
Okay.
it was
Yeah.
much more recent than.
Yeah, well, regardless, whatever it was, they've always had representation, so what's?
Yes, and I did contact the last representative that we had on file, and that person advised me that they are no longer
Okay.
representing
But they
the
got
entity,
notice.
and they did not know if the entity has received new representation or not.
But the entity has notice of this meeting?
Yes,
Okay. So is anybody here to speak on this item? They're not represented. Okay, anybody on Zoom?
I guess it was 2024.
there is no one on Zoom.
What is a watch order? What is a watch order? And an explosive threat?
I'm not 100% sure what a watch order is. An explosive threat, I think, is someone reporting a potential safety issue with an explosive device.
Wow. Okay.
Can you remind me how the request to, or notification that this item is on today was sent to them?
So the code requires the planning department to send via certified mail that needs a signature to be received at a minimum of 14 days prior to the hearing. I think we
And you have a
we well
signature?
exceeded the 14 days.
And you have a signature receipt?
And we got a receipt signature
All
back,
right, well,
yes.
All right, well, it's bizarre that they're not here to discuss it, so we'll close the public hearing.
Just a
Scott?
question for Debbie. I thought, we talked about these type of issues before, and I thought as soon as code compliance issues a violation notice for a violation of the CP, they're supposed to notify the planning department. I thought,
That is typically how we have been operating, where code now has a list of all of the CUPs citywide. And if there's a specific violation of the CUP, they do notify the planning department. I don't
right
think
away,
it's.
like right after,
I mean, within a reasonable several day time frame. Often, these violations are issued very late at night. Code compliance has, night shifts, and so it's not a real-time notification, but typically it's within a week.
Right, so I have a question. I mean, I don't think I've ever, since I've been on the planning board, had a hearing like this where the party was not represented, which I find pretty outrageous. So what do you want, I mean, what can we do?
Can't we
We make
just-
a motion
Let's
to-
make, I'll make a
I mean,
motion.
just delaying it, what does that do?
No, but you could,
No.
we move, they don't need to be here, so.
You could move to set a modification revocation hearing, you
Right.
could move to continue the progress report. I mean,
Okay.
the business did receive notice.
Okay, that's all I needed to verify.
So I
Okay.
would, and by the way, I looked, it was 2024, which feels like. yeah, time
Feels like
flies.
yesterday.
So I would make a motion.
Well, they were also in the news for a bunch of things, which probably made you think it was more recent.
I would make a motion to,
Set it for-
set for modification.
Revocation.
Slash
revocation
revocation.
hearing.
Okay, I agree
I'll
with that.
second
I'll
that.
second, yeah.
What's the
And
timing
that
we
would
have
be
to do
the
on that?
July 7th meeting is the earliest we could bring that
Okay,
back with
all
proper
right.
notice.
So Jonathan made the who had a second?
Second.
Yashil, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? All right, make sure they get a certified notice again. Okay, now we're on previously continued applications, companion items, Planning Board File 250812 and 0813, the Alton City Center Overlay Comprehensive Plan and LDR Amendment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. The planning board last heard this discussion at their April meeting. Since that time, we have held a public workshop. That public workshop was extremely well attended. That happened on April 7th, and in the staff analysis, we have provided you a summary of the input that we received from the public during that meeting. Just to give a relatively brief recap on what the specific proposal is, the applicant, which is a privately owned property between Lincoln Road and 17th Street from West Avenue to Alton Road, is proposing to construct a mixed-use project with a substantial amount of residential units. They are requesting an additional 1.5 FAR for a total maximum FAR of 3.5. They are requesting a density increase. The current density is 50 dwelling units per acre, and they are requesting a maximum density of 150 units per acre. They are also requesting a height increase from 65 feet to 150 feet. They have included provisions in their draft ordinance that would require that all of the new residential units have a restricted covenant, that they not be allowed short-term rentals. Staff has pointed out that this is somewhat similar to another city-sponsored ordinance that is currently making its way. That ordinance is the Lincoln Road West ordinance, which goes from, it's more comprehensive, it's a much larger area, but it does include this property, and it goes east to Drexel Avenue. So it's the entire Lincoln Road corridor plus 17th Street. Where this proposal diverges a little bit from that is the requested percentage of residential. The city's version is, you know, primarily looking at this as a benefit to enhance, significantly enhance our missing middle or reasonably affordable rental housing stock. So we have much more robust requirements in terms of the percentage of residential that's required above the ground floor. Here, the applicant is requesting that they only be permitted, or they only be required to introduce 50% of the floor, of the gross floor area above the ground floor as residential, and planning staff would recommend and does recommend that number be increased. They are also requesting to provide all of the required parking. Staff believes that this kind of new model, in order for it to increase housing and not increase our significant traffic congestion, we would like that parking requirement to be substantially reduced to a maximum of, say, 50% of the currently required parking as outlined in District Parking Tier 1. But in general, we are supportive of the proposal. We do believe that, you know, with perhaps some modifications, this could successfully increase our housing stock, which is a substantial priority for the city right now. And we are asking at this point for the planning board to transmit a favorable recommendation to the mayor and city commission with additional conditions that staff is recommending. But I'm happy to answer any questions if you have, but I also see that the applicant is here, ready to give their presentation.
Yeah, but before we start, so Neeson, you and I had a discussion procedurally about whose version of the ordinance do you have? Is this it that we have in our?
Yeah,
All right,
this
so hold on. So Nick, just want to confirm with you that because it's a private application and not sponsored by the city, that we can vote on their proposed ordinance?
You can either recommend the staff version, you can recommend the applicant's version, you could recommend a different version altogether.
Okay. I'm
And
assuming,
here's our, one small tweak in response to the concerns of planning staff. We have put in a maximum unit size. Other than that, the ordinance in your package is the same as the one you received when we filed.
yeah, so that's, I just wanted to make sure that legally, Nick, that because it's a private applicant, we can work off of their proposal if we want to.
Yeah,
Okay.
if that's the will of the board, yes.
All right, so yeah, so Neeson, you know, I know you're gonna do a whole presentation, but just, for our edification, just if we're gonna look at yours, which is fine, just make sure you emphasize and point out the differences between your draft and the city draft, since we're just getting it now.
Okay.
Okay?
Well,
Or
Mr.
is
Chair.
that what you just said?
Yeah, no, I mean, you've had our draft, and so we've made changes from our initial draft on there to include the unit size cap. But in any event, if you'd like, we'll.
And has staff seen their proposal, or are you just getting it now?
No, we reviewed this a day or two ago.
Okay, all right. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Neeson Kasdan and Cecilia Torres Toledo Ackerman, representing the applicant, and here with me as well as the principal of the applicant, David Berg. If we could put the presentation up on the screen. Just review briefly the main reasons for this, and also focus on what might be the significant discussion points. You've seen this before, that although Miami Beach population has decreased, traffic has increased. There is a direct correlation between the fact that the people who work on the beach can't live on the beach, and the people who live on the beach can't work on the beach. Pretty simple. There is a model that is in our own backyard that is beginning to show how a mixed-use neighborhood can work. That's Sunset Harbor, which was like that portion of Alton Road, sort of a tired, somewhat abandoned warehouse district, which now has offices, residential, and retail. We discussed before the fact that given traffic conditions and the lack of transit, living is becoming localized. We pointed that out in Coconut Grove, parts of Coral Gables. It's the three-legged stool. You have to have a place where you can live and work and play. You don't have one of those legs, you can't have a full community. Very significantly, the benefit to the city is fulfillment of the goals and objectives of the city's comprehensive plan. And I want to take just a moment so that everyone understands this is the underpinning of this legislation. The three policies. Policy 1.51, to encourage the establishment and continued development and enhancement of unique neighborhoods. The land development regulations may utilize tools including, but not limited to, the establishment of new zoning districts, zoning overlay districts like this one, special off-street parking requirement districts, etc. Policy 2.11, innovative land use development patterns, including mixed uses, shall continue to be permitted and encouraged through the provision of LDR incentives such as additional floor area when at least 25% of the total area of a building is residential or hotel as identified in specific future land use categories, and or shared parking or mixed uses, commercial, office, residential. And finally, policy 2.14, mixed-use developments will continue to be encouraged in all areas designated as commercial, residential, and MXE by creating districts in the land development regulations that are consistent with Florida statutes, which will permit combined hotel, residential, and commercial developments. This is what the city, after years of study, community consensus, has determined they want. So what we are doing here is fulfilling the policy and goals of the city and its comprehensive plans. And as we've laid out the case, it really only works if you have the mix of uses. And therefore, we have proposed in our legislation that at least 50% of the area be residential. The other can be, for instance, ground floor will be retail or commercial, and limited office. In this way, you can have all the three components that you need to have a healthy city and a healthy neighborhood in one building. If we look at the Alton Road, the overlay benefits, how they fulfill the city's comprehensive plan's goals and objectives, add substantial residential units within the city's economic and transportation hub, revitalizes a historically vacant and underutilized stretch of Alton Road. Everyone remembers Epicure. Adds neighborhood serving retail and destination uses, improves connectivity between Lincoln Road West, West Avenue, and Sunset Harbor, provides missing middle housing supporting those who work in Miami Beach but cannot currently afford to live in Miami Beach, expands year-round residency beyond its traditional seasonal base, reduces commuter traffic by enabling people to live near where they work, encourages the use of public transit and micromobility, alleviates local traffic and parking pressure, and strengthens the local economy through increased resident base. This overlay zoning is fulfilling the goals and objectives of the city in this way. This is broadly supported by many leading businesses and associations in the community. There was the community meeting. I would say it's fair to say that I think at least half the people were very supportive. And a number of the comments against it were actually directed towards the specific design of a proposed building on the site. We're not at that stage yet. This is not about design. This is just about the zoning and the land development regulations in total. The site will come later. We'll go before the DRB, and as a conditional use, we'll have to come before the planning board. With respect to the response to the staff recommendations, and I do want to compliment Debbie and her staff. They've worked well with us, and they're forward-thinking and trying to move this initiative forward. But with respect to the percentage that must be residential, our proposal is 50% be for no more than 50% be for non-transient commercial uses, 50% at least for residential uses versus 75%. David Berg can explain to you how in real time, in the real world, how this would work. But this really gets us what we want. We want residential. We want office on the beach. We want people to not have to commute. You need both. The minimum unit size, we did not have a minimum unit size, rather maximum unit size. We did not have that in our ordinance. Staff has recommended 1,300 square feet. We're proposing 1,700 square feet as a maximum unit size. There will be 1, 2, 3-bedroom units, and so I think this would accommodate that. That's the one change in the ordinance that we passed out. Finally, and this is sort of was like a unanimous sentiment that we saw from all public input, staff has recommended that off-street parking, if provided, shall not exceed 50% of the number of off-street parking spaces required under parking tier 1. We're saying that off-street parking is not required, but can be provided under parking tier 1. The simple fact is, and I think all of you know this from your professional, business, and personal experiences, it will be great if and when the day comes that we have enough micromobility and transit where people don't use cars. We're not there yet, and we probably won't be there for a while. So we need to have the ability to have an adequate amount of parking for the commercial and residential uses that are there. One thing, if I may, there was a letter of support from Ken Coppell from So Be Safe. He could not make it today, but I'd like to take a moment to read it into the record, and I think it encapsulates the whole reason behind what we're doing here today. Dear Planning Board members, while I would like to have be live in person or via Zoom for your meeting, a medical appointment makes it impossible, but I do wish to weigh in on this application. I speak both on my own behalf and as chair of So Be Safe, a group of volunteer residents primarily located in the northern portion of Ocean Drive. We support this application because it is a reasonable response to real needs. Specifically, the ratio of full-time residents to visitors in multiple areas of our city is low by the standards of any domestic or international tourist destination. Overall, the city's residential population is actually lower than a decade ago, although the effects are felt differently by neighborhood. The consequences of this imbalance affect multiple areas, including the ability of businesses to attract and maintain valued employees, truly horrendous traffic problems, and challenges to businesses' survival, particularly in the off-season. The relationship between traffic and resident population is easily seen. When I travel the Julia Tuttle at 8 a.m., it is bumper-to-bumper westbound and easy to speed going east, and the reverse in the afternoon. These are employees at our major employers, Mount Sinai, our hotels, and more who cannot afford to live in our city. The applicant's plan would help redress this imbalance, which is probably why major employers are supporting it, a number of the entities you saw with letters of endorsement. While I certainly defer to my respected West Avenue neighbors on local issues with which they may have concerns, as someone who frequently walks the area, and in particular Lincoln Road, I'm struck by the volume of vacancies and a frequent sense of emptiness during many parts of the day and evenings that both raise concerns about personal safety and the prospects of these area businesses striving to survive. In our city, developer has become an epithet, and it is true that caution is warranted. But without smart development within reasonable FAR and height limits, our chances of restoring acceptable levels of street security and local business success are limited. Closer to my home on North Ocean Drive, and observing the empty stores and relative prevalence of vape shops and tattoo parlors on Washington Avenue, I would wish for involvement by such as those who stand before you today, talking about David Berg and his company. Certainly plans need challenges, but we need to be careful that demands for the perfect aren't enemies of the good and badly needed. Thank you for your attention. I think that summarizes it. Mr. Berg is here. If you do have anything to add, if you have a minute or two.
I'm going to add.
Well, you don't?
No.
Okay.
You do or don't want to say something at this point?
I'm happy to answer any questions
All right.
or address any conversation.
All right, well,
but I don't
then
have
let's
anything to add to presentation.
start with public comment. So anybody in chambers talk on this?
Hi, Troy Wright, Washington Avenue Business Improvement District. To begin, we've seen what David has done in the past, his amazing work at the Esme Hotel, and we believe that he is doing an incredible job, and the asset that he has provided for Washington Avenue can only be duplicated where he is now. Residential living is important. Obviously, we see the experience that we have in Washington Avenue. And I would say that the only issue that we would have with this project, if any, is parking. Parking is a must. I think Saul Gross put it best in saying that unless you allow sufficient amount of parking, you will always have challenges. And so we support what David Berg is doing. We believe in what he's doing, he and his team. They do a great job. And not just investing in the real estate of it, but also what he does for the community and for his employees. So we will definitely sponsor and support whatever we can do for David and his team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Claudia Jagged on behalf of the Lincoln Road bid. I echo what Troy just said. The Lincoln Road bid is in full support of this project, and we think it's going to be great for the revitalization of Lincoln Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in chambers? Okay, anybody on Zoom?
Our first speaker is Valerie Navarrete.
Valerie, you there?
Good morning, everyone.
Val,
Thank you.
were you sworn in? Did you participate in that?
Since
you
this
don't-
is-
No, I wasn't on
This
the
is a
Zoom.
legislative item, so
Go ahead.
public speakers don't need to be sworn.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, but I swear in anyway. I swear that what is all the truth, nothing but the truth, and truth to be said. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for doing all that you're doing for the city. I would like to express not only my personal opinion, but also as a board member of Sobe West. I live here on this area, and as I mentioned in the previous meeting, we are bleeding for parking. We are bleeding for parking right now. We are bleeding for parking months ago. And once the project, the West Avenue Phase 2 project's done, we are going to lose about 140 to 150 parking spaces. So please do not take the parking spaces away. I'm begging you. And that's my, main position. This is a great project. We are all happy with the mix and all that the residents that will bring here that work, live, and play here. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie.
Our next speaker has a screen name of WR.
Okay, just please introduce yourself and your address, please. Thanks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Wayne Roberts, south of Fifth. I listened to Mr. Berg, the gentleman, Mr. Berg, during his presentation to the community. I don't know, it had to be about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago. I am very concerned. I don't want to be Brickell. I don't want to be, I live in Miami Beach for a reason. It's a beach community. It's not an urban landscape like this downtown Miami. And this project, if you go back 4 or 5 years, there was a variance given, merging properties and other variances to create, at that point, a plan 4 or 5 years ago. And I kind of agreed with it. The height was, I think, 4 or 5 flights versus 15 today, or 150 feet. And it's going to change the landscape of Alton Road. It would be the first example, and it's just going to continue. But that building is huge. It's the width, the length of that building along Alton Road is humongous. You're going to create a giant wall, and that's my concern. My concern is that there's no way that Miami Beach should approve 150-foot height along a long stretch. And the comment about traffic is so ridiculous on its face because there's no way there's going to reduce traffic in Miami Beach. You're not going to be able to add business people coming from Miami, from the islands, and coming this way and reducing traffic in Miami. There's no gain. There's only a loss in terms of congestion. And it's at a point and a place on Alton Road that is highly congested already. And it's almost impossible to make its way to up Alton Road to 41st Street or down to 5th Street without major delays, especially during rush hour, which is when the action will happen most often. with this project. No, I think it should go back to the drawing board, give us what we originally agreed to, or some modification, slight modification. But this project is not a gain for the city of Miami Beach in any way. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, our next speaker is Elba Machado.
Elba?
Hi, good morning. Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Elba Machado from B&E Hospitality Group. We are completely in support of the project, stated in a letter, January 22nd. B&E Hospitality Group is a restaurant operator with over 30 years. Our first restaurant in Mexico, which, by the way, yes, happy Cinco de Mayo. We have several restaurants, so tacos for lunch will be available at our locations. We operate restaurants actually on Española Way where I echo both Claudia and Troy. Definitely for a restaurant operator, the housing component of this project, it's instrumental. It will be something very important for us to be able to actually retain. One of the issues that we have right now with young professionals, it's the retention. They don't want to live in Miami Beach. They cannot afford to live in Miami Beach. So this project definitely adds to the live, work, and play, which in restaurants, of course, we say eat, work, and play. Definitely alleviating that, providing that connectivity and alleviating that micromobility component, which is also as well so important to alleviate traffic actually, and for them to be able to work in Miami Beach and live in Miami Beach in a long-term phase. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tim C.
Good morning, everyone. This is Tim Carr, Shelby West Neighborhood Association, calling on behalf of this project to support it. And again, with West Ave Phase 2 renovation currently going on, again, as Valerie had mentioned, we're going to lose over 140 surface street parking in the area with that renovation. So we really do need additional parking options. And David Berg has offered that to us, especially at nighttime, for residents to be able to park to help meet that need. Secondly, as you can see from the quality of work that he's done on Española Way with the Esme Hotel and how he's helped revitalize that area, I know that we can do the same thing with his talents along the Alton Road corridor there to help spill over to Lincoln Road. And then lastly, again, you can see the quality of what he did at the Viceroy Hotel right around the corner at 17th and Alton as well. So we do appreciate you all working with them with the parking needs as well in this important development. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Our next speaker is Nancy Duke.
Good morning, everyone. I have to apologize for my voice. I lost it somewhere along the way. I really am calling in support of this project. I think it's a great project. I think David Berg did a great job on it. My only concern is, again, the parking, which others have voiced as well. You know, this, in a lot of ways, this is personal for me, because when I first came to Miami Beach, I didn't have a car and I needed a place to work. And then when I got a car, you know, I ended up actually moving off the beach. So you want people to be able to drive, and those who have a car and those who don't have a car. You need a place for both. But right now, at this point, we still need parking spaces. There, in this area, I live at the end of Lincoln Road. We're desperately in need of parking spaces. So I support it, but I also would like to make sure that you don't reduce parking. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Stefan Guinness.
Hey, good morning. My name is Stefan Ginez, 1409 Lincoln Road, Miami Beach. Just want to echo what was said earlier, and I just would like to add about to the, this is kind of like a perfect match for what we're looking for in our close neighborhood. I'm like about not even 2 blocks away from this property. Parking is a huge issue. I'm also excited about the fact that we're adding some residents who are going to be there year-round. This is tremendously important for the businesses that are around us. We can't afford for restaurants, bars, and similar businesses to make it if the residents that we're adding are not going to be around for the summertime. So I strongly support this project, and I'm looking forward to working with the developer about making this happen soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tom Hawkins.
Tom?
Okay, he put his hand down, so we'll move on to Daniel Seraldo.
Yes, hi. Should I be sworn in?
No.
Okay. Daniel Seraldo, 730 10th Street, Miami Beach, Florida. I am a resident of the city, and just like this item and any FAR increase, I am formally objecting on the record that this is a violation of the city charter that gives voters the power, not the planning board, not every bid in the neighborhood or the neighborhood groups, but the voters, the power to decide on FAR increase. No matter the merits of this project, it must go to the voters. If not, it will be challenged. If anyone wants to join me, please reach out to me. And putting this on the record, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Our next speaker is Ceci
I have a
Vela.
question for the city attorney. Is there any merit to that argument?
No, state law preempts us from enforcing that charter provision.
Okay, so we do have the power.
Yes, you do.
Next speaker is Ceci Velasco.
Sorry, I had to prepare myself. So I own at 1331 Lincoln Road, which is right next door to this project, and I think it's going to be a great addition to our little neighborhood. I echo what everybody said. We need full-time residents that will, and we have these beautiful new restaurants that are going in. Some of these mom and pop restaurants that are there, walkable to Sunset Harbor. That Whole Foods is going to be opening pretty soon. We do need the parking, even though it's very walkable. But from the tourism and hospitality aspect, so many of our hotels and restaurants can't find good management staff because it is so hard to get here and it's so hard to live here. And this would give them an opportunity to bring in and curate some good management staff. We are the postcard, right, of South Florida. Tourism and hospitality is #1, and yet we don't have places in that middle level where these people can live, these mid-level professionals can live. So for those reasons, I support the program. I really do also believe that we need to have that parking. People need a car. They want to go away for the weekend. I think it's a very walkable area, but I don't think they should be suffered to have to get rid of their car. So with that, I just wanted to voice my support. I live, my condo is right next door.
Thank you, Ceci.
Okay, and our last speaker is Tom Hawkins.
My apologies for lowering my hand earlier. First of all, I want to thank everybody on the committee here for the hard work they do for our city. It's much appreciated. I am very much in favor of this project. This is sensible development that brings Miami Beach back. And what do I mean by that? Over the last decade, we've lost thousands of residents for a variety of reasons, but many related to Airbnbs. Over 5,000 properties are registered here in the city of Miami Beach as Airbnbs. Those are not permanent residents. Some people estimate there's another 5,000 units in the city that are illegal Airbnbs. So we've lost 10,000 housing units over the last several years due to Airbnb. This is the exact kind of project we need to help bring people back that can afford to live in Miami Beach and work and live their lives here. Lincoln Road, I've lived here for decades, and Lincoln Road is down on its luck. It's starting to come back, but this would be another important element in returning Lincoln Road to the prominence that it once had. So I'm in favor of this project. This is sensible development and is something that we really need in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. So for Zoom, all right, I'm going to one last opportunity in chambers. Anybody that walked in want to speak? All right, close the public hearing. Clearly, the vast majority is in support of the project, and obviously parking is the primary issue of people that are in support. So with that, Scott, start with you if you have any questions of the.
Yeah, as I said last month, my main concern is just with what could be a wall along Alton Road. And I'm talked about maybe setting back the portion above, I think I said 30 or 35 feet, back from Alton Road. Again, you have a really long facade there, and you're talking about, I think you said it's over 300 feet long, and it could be 75 feet high. That's my concern. I don't have an issue with the 50% residential. I don't have an issue with the amount of parking. You're asking for a maximum unit size of 1,700 square feet. I may question if that's really going to benefit people that are working in the city, but that's what you want to do. My concern is that, walking down Alton Road, right up against a wall. So, I intend to vote favorably for this, but only if that, we recommend that there be, I'm going to call it a substantial setback or a, I don't know what other word to use, but above, let's say 30 feet, 35 feet along Alton Road. And I know we spoke the other day about height, 150 feet, that's pretty high. Look, I mean, I guess staff can ask, that's comparable to the garage building across the street. I guess I'm okay with that. Just my concern is, you say 150 feet, but how that's measured, and then when you add mechanicals on the roof, it could be maybe 170 feet above grade. I would hope maybe I'll leave that to the DRB to decide on. But my concern is that perception of a wall along Alton Road. So that's how that's my position on this.
I do want to thank staff for summarizing a lot of the comments that in the meetings. That was very helpful for us to have that. So in terms of the parking, you guys had mentioned the ability for residents to, or the neighborhood residents to park there overnight when the spaces aren't being used. How is that going to be guaranteed? We've seen this property change hands a few times, so how is that in this ordinance, proposal? Or is that just based on your word, which I take you at your word, but if you sell this property, that there's nothing binding, the new owner?
Well, we have a couple lease negotiations that are ongoing, and we have language in our leases. It's not in the ordinance. We are receptive to doing so. But that's how we're addressing it. Ultimately, it's determined by the leases that allow for it.
It's also based on, the functions of the building. Since it's a true mixed-use building, there will be there'll be times when parking won't be used for one use or the other, and therefore available. I would also remind you that being in CD2, that this, and the size of anything that would be built there, this will require conditional use approval as well by the planning board. So you'll have an ability to delve more deeply and specifically into that when our actual project comes forward.
Yeah, but I guess the problem is that, we're granting the potential for a future buyer of the whole property, an as of right to build, 150 feet high, and part of everybody's agreement, and in the neighborhood, we heard a lot of the comments is the ability to park there because we're losing 100 and something spots, and so. I mean, I want to make sure that if the property changes hands, that it's understood that part of the 150 feet as of right, there needs to be access to that parking, to the neighborhood, not just the lessees. I mean, if there's a big corporation that comes in from New York and takes up all the office space, they don't care about the extra money or anything, about to get back from those parking spaces. So they say they just want them wholesale. And so it's a concern of mine. So I guess, for other board members to consider.
Well, I mean, staff, is that something that could be incorporated into an ordinance? The requirement that parking be available to residents?
I think so.
I mean, so I think.
Because anyone who bought it would be subject to leases, but once those leases are
Right.
termed, they would no longer be in effect, so.
I mean, one option is the board, you have before you an overlay that has all these conditions of eligibility, right, to be eligible for the additional FAR. We could potentially incorporate a public parking component as a condition of eligibility, but I think we would want to know if that's something the applicant will agree to, since this is a private application.
Right. Well, I mean, Neeson, you heard every comment, except for one that I heard, was all supportive, but the common theme was parking. For even those in support, to make sure that there's parking availability. So that's what we're trying to work out here.
No, understood, but also to give you context for the comment, remember the alternate recommendation from staff was basically much less parking. And I think that's what people were reacting to, and we're saying, let us be able to park up to tier 1.
Right, but to Jonathan's concern, just to make sure it goes with the property, is any thoughts you have about how to incorporate that?
We're offering as a public benefit, and we intend to honor it, the overnight ability to park for residents at the Miami Beach parking rate. The question of number of spaces, that isn't determined at this point, so I can't give you a definitive number, but as a overriding concept, we're willing to stand behind what we're promising.
No, I know, but his concern is if you're no longer the owner, that's.
No, but I'm saying even as a part of the approval recommendation, I'm willing to stand behind that. I just can't give you numbers at this point. But as a concept, we support that.
Okay, so I mean look, I mean, we're kind of, I think it's a good, concept. I think, I'm supportive. If a big, venture capital firm from New York decides to buy the whole building, use as their employee housing, and use all the office space for themselves, and have their flagship Florida location right on Alton Road, which is a jewel, and they say, no, we don't want to do parking for everybody. I mean, then the residents are stuck with this big building that there was a give and a take, and they gave the 150 feet and all this massing, but.
First off, I just think inherently by the fact that there are office and retail users that are not going to be occupied at night, there'll be available spaces, and I can't imagine any company, really taking their feet on a lease saying you can't park in my parking spaces at 9 p.m. It just doesn't, it's not a practical thing. We're going through this real time with some tenants now, and that's not an issue. But if it gives you a little more certainty, we do have, I can't remember exactly how many spaces, we have a bunch of spaces on the West Avenue lot, and they're not in the garage. And so you could literally, covenant that or something like that. But, that's not even in the garage, if that makes you, that helps.
And then the other thing was so, I mean, I'm okay. I mean, I'm curious if staff, the response regarding the maximum unit size, I'm okay with 1,700. I mean, I think that does keep the units, kind of price controls some of the units. But I guess one question I have is in terms of the office space. I think we had talked about this previously, about the size of the office space, and that it wouldn't be just one big family office with 5 employees taking up the whole space, that the idea is to have smaller office spaces to bring in more employees, to bring in more residents who can work there and all that.
Correct. We've designed the office space to have, we've actually moved to a center core, and the current demising program is 4 spaces or 3 spaces. So depending on the scale, they can range from like 1,800 square feet to 3,000 or 4,000 square feet. But the idea is that, and I think the demand is this anyway, so it lends itself to this, but we intend to have basically an average 2,000, 3,000 square foot user. And that I think will help not drive, one big 8,000, 9,000, or 20,000 square foot user that is bringing a ton of people, but also isn't just a 3 or 4 person, family office operation.
Are you open to adding that, like a maximum square footage for the office space in addition to
I think that if someone wants a full floor, I don't want to limit that company.
How much would that be? How much?
9,000 square feet. So it's that would be a full floor occupant. But that, again, there's plenty of, Pura Vida occupies a full floor. That's local. Wayne Boyce's company occupies a full floor in his office building. So I think that there's plenty of good local businesses that have local residents working at them with, 15, 20 people in the office or more that are local that occupy that size square footage.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think to maximize the impact of this. I mean, again, at the very least, putting a cap on the full floor, so that you don't have, a family office come in and it ends up being an art collection for that one family. You know what I mean? We've seen it happen in other spaces where, it's supposed to be residential and, office space, and one company buys up the residential and the office space and they get the FAR benefits of it. So I'm just throwing that out there for the planning board, but I think, obviously there's a lot of support for the project, and so I'm supportive. I think I want to make sure there's safeguards. I mean, I think, you and I have spoken, you've done great projects here, but properties change hands, and we heard some of the comments, and so I just want to protect the residents in the city in terms of if the property were to change hands, that there are the railings on things.
I'll be brief. Most of my comments are going to be directed towards staff to see what we can and cannot include in a CUP. I'm in favor of it. I think very similar
Your CUP's not today. You're talking about the ordinance.
Correct, but I just want to make sure that's something that we can ultimately bind them to. Similar to the project that you brought with Ambassador Sejas, I wish this could be taller to get some additional density to truly solve the issues that we're having in the city for the missing middle, but I think this is at least a step in the right direction. So for city staff, the applicant didn't bring up last meeting that they would be in favor of, I think, promising that this would not be a for sale product, at least as it relates to the residential units. How can we include that or make sure that that's something that's there in perpetuity?
So that could be a condition for the additional height or FAR, that they submit a covenant running with the land requiring
That
this
would be done
to
now,
be
or
a
that
rental.
would be done once they come back with their specific project?
I mean, it could be part of the ordinance as well, I
Okay.
think, as, to avail themselves of their bonuses that they're requesting. It could be part of the ordinance that
And I assume that
it
that
would be a rental
condition,
building.
along with the short-term rental exclusions, along with, I believe we spoke about having rates for parking that are consistent with city rates, you're still okay with all of that?
Yes.
Okay. That's it.
Well, then, we would need to add that, no?
Well, I guess we make a motion.
Or is a separate motion, or, okay, so mark your notes. Melissa?
Done.
I think like most of the projects, it's not a perfect project, and I hear the concerns of the resident. Height's a big one always when we have these developments, but I feel like this is addressing a lot of the issues we have, or some of the big ones that we have for the city. Any person you speak with who's a resident here or a visitor always talks about Lincoln Road being in a different state than it used to be 15, 20 years ago. And so we've been looking for ways of making Lincoln Road vibrant again for the residents, not just for tourists. And we've approved recently a project on the east side, I think in Washington, and 17th, where we have a big residential building coming up. And I think this kind of has like both ends covered now on Lincoln Road if we go along with this project where we have some extra residents, and that is going to be certainly boosting, Lincoln Road and affecting it in a positive way. We have, the other big concern is parking, and I've, from the start, have not been very supportive of being too restrictive on the parking for all the reasons we've talked about before. Something to keep in mind as well is as we go through this rezoning of Lincoln Road, where there will be some possibilities of residential units being built there. Those are buildings that cannot have parking lots. So we will have a whole district of housing that won't have necessarily parking lots built in to these buildings. So I think that might be more applicable and suited for that. But when we have this project here on Elton Road, I think we really need to be open-minded to making it a success by adjusting the parking spaces that we let them have on for this project. As far as concern, sorry, I had a couple notes here. As far as when Jonathan and Scott have both brought up some of the design issues, setbacks, and my big thing is when you guys do the design is that you do have a lot of congestion both on West Avenue and Alton Road in that area. So I think it's really important that we are thoughtful in the design of how cars enter and leave the parking lot, because it's a really tricky corner already, just even when we had just Epic here in the hardware store. So I would really like that there'd be a lot of thought in the design process to make sure that that is flowing well. But overall, approving for the project, and I'm excited to see it happen. Thank you.
Hi.
Elizabeth?
Hi. Excuse me. Good morning. I'm assuming we're working off of this
The
document?
applicants,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm supportive. I would like to know a couple of things. Do you have any retailers or commitments now for any of the spaces?
We're working with a Epicure type of new age replacement. It's a fresh food / boutique grocer concept. By grocer, I mean you can get packaged meals, hot bar, coffee bar, bakery, almost like a mini version of like a Citarella, but kind of, again, similar to Epicure is the best way to describe it. And then we have a few wellness, fitness, and we're trying to really embody this Blue Zone initiative for the building. So we're trying to program the second floor to have a Blue Zone hub and have fitness and wellness and health-oriented concepts that drive for community, a lot of outdoor space in our building for that community engagement. So those are the conversations we're having with those tenants. And the answer is yes, we have ongoing conversations for the ground floor and the second floor retail spaces right now. We're not yet there on the office because we're still demising the spaces.
Sure.
And of course, the residential is too early.
And regarding setbacks, I hear a lot of that. I think the sidewalk is about 10 feet. I'd like to suggest that we set back 20 feet so that we have a little bit more room. I'd also like to remind everybody that the city-sponsored plans for Lincoln and Washington are at the same height. So I don't have an issue with that. I just have an issue if it's going to just be a complete wall. But we haven't seen a plan, and that's not what we're voting on. And the 150 feet, if that could include the mechanicals and have those hidden as well.
Well, the mechanicals are allowed to be up to 25 feet over, and if that was the case, you'd probably have to eliminate two residential floors.
How could we make that more?
You won't be able to see them from the street.
Remember, they also...
I'm just wanting something to kind of hide it and make it more.
They can't occupy the entirety of the area above the roof. They're a smaller area and it have to be screened.
Okay.
You won't see them from the street.
Okay.
I think there's a limit in the code of 20%.
So currently, the maximum height is 65 feet, and there is no required setback.
Yep. That's why I'd like to see something incorporated, just for protection buffer.
I think 68% of our ground floor is set back 10 feet or more.
Okay.
Currently in our design.
Okay. I'm supportive. I think it's a great project. I think it's exactly would tie in Sunset Harbor, would tie in Lincoln Road. I think it's exactly what the neighborhood needs. Thank you.
Is the setback on Alton, or is that on other parts?
On Alton.
On Alton, so the 68%?
68% of the Alton frontage is setback.
Got it. Okay.
All right, anybody other comments or someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to move
Okay.
it
Elizabeth?
favorably
Well,
with the amendments, or suggestions, rather.
Oh, just to be
support it
clear,
with
hold on, just to be clear, we're operating on the applicant's
Yep.
version. So go ahead, Elizabeth, sorry.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve favorably and request that the commission consider our amendments.
Will you add in the conditions that we spoke about?
Yeah.
Well, do you want us to do that in a separate motion, or do you want it to?
It can be the same motion or a separate motion, but I just would like maybe a summary of the recommendations. I have, from my notes, a requirement that this be a rental product, and a covenant be submitted, requiring rentals, running with the land, and exploring setbacks for portions of the property. I don't know if you wanted to be more specific about that.
I
Front
would.
back from Alton.
I would stick with what I said, a substantial setback above 35 feet. A setback from Alton Road, anything above 35 feet has a substantial setback.
You know that just means it goes higher, right?
I'm going to stick with that.
Okay.
It's similar to what they did on Washington Avenue years ago with the
Well,
hotel.
Okay.
But that's,
I'm-
honestly, without that, I wouldn't be in favor, if that's not a recommendation.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I mean, the pedestal in the city is 50 feet or 55 feet. I believe the 1212 Lincoln Building is, which is 60,
I think 75.
I think the developer's here, like 65 feet, and that's not set back. And, you know, I think it's attractive. That gives you an idea of how it really would work, and then above that, you're setting back, so.
Are there setbacks required for Washington and Lincoln, or Washington rather, that new, I can't remember what we did.
We do have required setbacks for the Washington residential plan, and up to, we're also deferring to the Historic Preservation Board in terms of they can waive up to a certain amount of that setback, just to allow for a little bit of flexibility. But we did include setbacks.
These considerations, if I may, can also be dealt with as part of the design review board process.
I'm in favor of that.
And by the way, just procedurally, we need to do one at a time, correct? Like we're starting with the comprehensive plan, or we can do them both together?
I think you should take one vote on the comp plan amendment and
Okay.
then the next vote on the LDR. amendment.
Right, all right, so Elizabeth's motion is with respect to the comp plan for now.
Including Debbie's comments. And then the last comment I had was on the rates being, consistent with neighboring city lots.
The rental condition, the parking rate condition, the setbacks, all of those should be addressed, I think, in the LDR.
And the
amendment.
parking rates.
That would be in the
Yes,
LDR.
And I just like the record to reflect that the applicant is voluntarily agreeing to these conditions.
We need to specify
We need to
that.
wordsmith it a little bit when we get to the LDR.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right, so that's for the LDR comments. All right, so let's, we have a motion to send the comprehensive plan overlay amendment favorably. So we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so it's unanimous. All right. Now, Elizabeth, if you can make a motion on the LDR amendment.
I'd like to, listen, I mean, I have no issues with this, with your version. I think that's, if you can just kind of wordsmith a little bit also, somehow to do something with, you know what, it's all DRB stuff, really. So I appreciate it.
I
Thank you.
don't think it's all DRB. I mean, we're right now, we're going to vote to increase the FAR. So
Right.
that's us. We can do the same thing with setbacks, we can do the same thing with green space, we can do any of the zoning, the criteria that's part of the LDR, we can do.
Scott,
So I
don't forget.
I don't feel comfortable leaving setbacks to the DRB.
Scott, I want to just say one thing, and that's to remind everybody, and everybody that's listening also, they could do a live local here. And that's as high as they want to go, with zero anything. So I'm not going to put too many constraints on something that is a really good project that I think is good for the neighborhood, that clearly the neighbors want and need. So
Well, you have the right to make your motion, so
Right.
make your motion and then we'll vote on it.
I'll make a motion to approve favorably, excuse me.
With,
With just the caveats that they discussed, the
Correct.
setbacks.
Just wanna make sure
and
that's
the-
clear.
And the setbacks
Rentals and the parking rates.
and the parking rates are included
Right.
with whatever's consistent with
I
the
just want
city
to
at
make
the
sure
time.
Deborah has it all.
Yep.
Okay.
Can we?
And the rental.
And the
rental
rentals,
part.
yes.
So it doesn't include, you're not including what I was recommending in that. I just want to be clear. You're not including a recommendation for a substantial setback above 35 feet along Alton Road.
Is it 35 or 50 feet?
I'm recommending, I'm saying that, the first 2 floors, whatever that height is.
Mr. Chair, can we, I don't mean to interrupt, go through these specifically because, so we understand exactly the
Sure.
language we're dealing with.
Absolutely.
Number one, let me deal with the issue of parking and publicly accessible parking. In our subsection 4, which talks about micro-mobility, we could add a clause at the end that says, "and shall be accessible for public parking." Now, understood, we don't know exactly as we sit here today how many spaces and at what hours, but we can put something in the ordinance which says it shall be accessible for public parking. And that
And what
was
about the
something.
rates?
What?
I think one of the things we spoke about last meeting was that the rates were gonna, you weren't gonna charge.
Whatever's
that
consistent with the city.
$50 for an hour?
Whatever's, I think he had agreed with whatever is consistent with the city rates.
Where we're at right now, because we're still on zoning, is that we have spaces on the West Avenue lot that are not structured and are outside. And they're basically neighboring the Miami Beach parking spaces. You know, then we have spaces in the garage that are gonna be commercial spaces that won't be used overnight. So what we're speaking about as public benefit is that for the hours that the commercial spaces are not using the commercial spaces, those spaces may be offered at Miami Beach parking rates.
Correct.
At those times.
That's correct.
That's all we can commit to at this point, but.
Consistent with my understanding, I just
Yeah.
want, meaning what Neeson mentioned was the availability, so that's part one, and then part two is at the pricing.
So it would
Consistent
be-
with city pricing.
Shall be accessible for public parking at the rates.
Miami Beach parking rates,
Miami Beach.
but there has to be condition on specific timing and.
Yeah, what we
Yeah,
can do
absolutely.
is we can put that it's the underutilized parking that only,
during
that would be
during
available to the
non-commercial-
public.
during
Correct.
non-commercial use
Well, that's what
hours.
underutilized
Yeah.
is.
Yes,
So I think-
underutilized parking shall be accessible for public parking at Miami Beach rates.
Right.
I'd like, also, one more thing, if you would entertain. I had seen something in the last meeting where you had put 4 spaces per office, 1 per 3, I think it was 1 space for, what was it, 300 feet of retail? And then 4, and then 1 for 4 seats of office, restaurant. We have a problem in Miami Beach that we need to somehow uniformly apply standards. So we've got all of these tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Maybe we can at some point, streamline this a little bit so that we're not having to deal with this every time. But I like what you're doing. Thank you.
Anything else, Neeson?
So that's the parking topic,
That's the
right?
parking topic. We talked about rental covenant,
Yeah, we're okay being a rental product.
okay?
So do you want to change any of the language?
So the language would be where we say covenant of limiting STRs. We would say also a covenant requiring that the residential units be rental.
I think we have language that says no leases less than 6. Oh, that's what it says.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's short-term rental.
But essentially, this would prevent you from converting the units to condos.
Right.
And all of these voluntary proffers are going to be memorialized in that section on what the covenant will require, and then there would be, if all of these ordinances are adopted, there would be a separate covenant recorded against the property.
Yes.
And that addition I just spoke about would be in subsection 2, would specify that it would be rental. Right. It would be a covenant limiting into rental units.
Okay?
I'm happily seconding.
Okay, I think you may want to do a roll call on this one.
Okay, and just to clarify, the motion contains currently a general recommendation about setbacks, that there be some type of setback introduced, but not with the specificity of Mr. Needleman. Correct? That's your motion?
I think it should say above 35 feet on Alton Road.
That's a huge,
I'd be okay with that if it says a incorporated setback of 35 feet along Alton Road.
So procedurally, what we can do is if Ms. Latone's motion is seconded, then Scott, you could bring a motion to amend to include the 35-foot.
But then are we voting on, if we don't approve with the amendment that he's putting on, so?
I would stay with
If
Elizabeth's
the amendment
motion.
fails, then you would vote on Elizabeth's version.
Correct. And
So
hers
is there a
hers
second?
is just to consider setbacks without a defined
Right.
amount. Okay.
Is there a second
All
to
right, we have a
Elizabeth's
second,
motion?
so do a roll call, please.
Oh,
Yes, you'll second it.
the question is Scott going to move to amend the motion? Because
No,
a motion to amend takes precedence.
I would make, is it a motion to amend?
Yes.
Then I would make a motion to amend that we clarify the setback requirement to say that along Alton Road, above 35 feet, there is a setback incorporated. We need to incorporate a setback above 35 feet along Alton Road.
That would be problematic.
Before you vote, I just want to explain what that
Hold
means.
on,
Sorry.
wait, just hold on. Okay, we have a motion to amend it. Is there
Is there
a
a
second
second?
on his motion? A second. All right, so that fails. So now we're going to vote on Elizabeth's motion. We have a second, so if you do a roll call.
Ms. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Frieden?
Yes.
Mr. Nadelman?
No.
Mr. Cement?
Yes.
Ms. Latone?
Yes.
And Mr. Elias?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you all very much for the time
Okay.
and consideration.
Thank you so much,
given
appreciate
this.
it.
Thanks for the presentation. Okay, we're on to new applications. The first one is Planning Board File 250801, 1826 Collins Avenue, mechanical parking.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. An application has been filed requesting conditional use approval for mechanical parking. This is an application for mechanical parking as part of a Live Local project, which is being reviewed administratively by the city. The Live Local Act is a state law that provides incentives for projects that have at least 40% workforce housing. Under the act, a proposed development must be administratively approved. However, the act does not preempt conditional use regulations. As a result, the applicant is requesting conditional use approval for the introduction of car elevators within the project. The car elevators are located at the rear of the building and access 35 parking spaces on floors 2 to 5. Building users will drop off their cars within the enclosed driveway at the ground level, and a valet attendant will drive the car into the elevators and up to a designated parking space. The parking will be serviced 24 hours a day by a valet attendant. The applicant has submitted an operational plan outlining the mechanical parking operations, as well as loading and deliveries. Staff has included several conditions in the draft order to minimize any potential adverse impacts to neighbors regarding these aspects of the project. We are also recommending that the proposed 22-foot wide curb cut along Collins Avenue be reduced to the greatest extent possible. Due to the substantially enclosed driveway and parking elevators, staff does not anticipate any adverse impacts from the mechanical parking on the surrounding neighborhood and recommends approval of the application.
Good morning, everybody. Graham Penn, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, on behalf of the property owner. We have two housekeeping matters. First, I heard the voice of Henry Stoller calling to me, reminding me that we needed to correct our disclosure of interest related to the property. So my lovely assistant, Carlos Markovich, is going to be handing you an updated disclosure of interest just to make sure that it's proper in the file. Second, I don't know if Russell wants to testify. Russell, you going to want to speak at all today? You know, he needs to be sworn if he's going to testify. I apologize. He was.
Sure. Anybody who was not present this morning and intends to testify, would you raise your right hand? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay, and is there any disclosures that any of the board members need to make?
No.
No? None? Okay.
Okay, great. Let me introduce.
I had a missed call from Russell, but I didn't answer it. Go ahead.
Same. but
We never
this is
take
you.
it personally. I just want to let you, every time. Also from ownership, we have Mark Oladeff. We also have our architect, Bob Bistry, here for questions, Joaquin Vargas, and the aforementioned Carlos Markovich. So as Jake explained, we're here asking for approval of a valet-operated car elevators for redevelopment of this site under the terms of the Florida's Live Local Act. We talk a lot about missing middle housing already today, and this kind of project is designed through the state statute to address that issue. And again, this is a very small project, a very minor project, but it will provide that housing under the terms of the act. As Jake has explained, this application is consistent in all respects with your relevant criteria. We have no objections to the conditions, except we're going to discuss one we need to clarify related to the FDOT jurisdiction over the driveway. So with that prelude, if I
Sorry,
could.
just to stop you there. The only thing that's within our purview right now is the mechanical parking.
That's
Is that
correct. And I will unfortunately bore you with that as we go, just to make it clear. Okay, so here we are. You can see we're on the west side of Collins. It's a 9,500 square foot lot. We are, to the south of us is Tower 1800, an existing 18-story condominium. Dorchester Hotel to our north, Pestana Hotel Complex to our west, James Central to our southwest. Across the street, of course, we've got the triumvirate of the Shore Club, the Nautilus, and the Shelbourne, north to south. This property, as I noted before, is very small. It's 50 feet wide at its narrowest, and historically it was a parking lot for a lot of years. It most recently came before the city in 2009 for a robotic garage and a restaurant use. So they have an approved CUP for that. 240-seat restaurant plus a robotic car garage. So that project, which was built, contemplated the use of car elevators to serve this robotic structure, which unfortunately the parking system never properly functioned. So this is the existing structure, got built. The robotic system never really worked. You can see the habitable space in the front, and this is on our southern property line against Tower 1800. And then you would go straight in there and you would enter an elevator and go up, and the entire thing was essentially a robot that took you up. Never properly functioned. So, as we've already discussed, this is a project on the terms of the Live Local Act, and what does that mean? The Live Local Act is intended by the state to address the lack of affordable rental housing units in Florida. And we know it, we already discussed it today. Dade County is a poster child for unaffordability for rental units. They have the highest percentage of cost burden renters in the entire state, 59%, and of course, the city is certainly no better than that. What the Live Local Act does for property owners, it allows you to have increased density on your site, it allows you to increase floor area and increased height, in exchange for 40% of your units on your property to be rental affordable units. And in the city, that is mostly in workforce units, which is up to 120% of AMI. They have to be rental units to work under the terms of the statute. And most importantly, for the scope of your review, the site plan review, the design approval, the building itself is an administrative approval. So right now, we have a pending application from the planning department for this project. So the building itself is outside of the purview of any design board and this board. This is the proposed development. 15 stories, 29 units, 12 of those units are workforce housing units, and we also have a little bit of office space. That's the proposal. So, as I've already belabored, this board generally doesn't have design authority, but especially in a Live Local context. Design, setback, size, density, not on the table, and you're limited to the operation of the car elevators. The reason I'm belaboring this is that I'm sure you have received a lot of emails from our neighbors to our south suggesting that I set the building back 10 feet. Number one, that won't function. We're too narrow. And number two, that is outside the purview of this board to opine upon at all in this process. So let's talk about the elevators briefly. This is our ground floor. As Jake explained, it's a very simple building. You enter off of Collins, you're immediately inside the structure. Then cars would pull in to I can kind of show you, pull in around here. Valet would take the vehicle. Person would go in the lobby, go up to their unit or to the office. Valet operator brings it to one of two elevators in the rear that are fully enclosed within the structure. Those elevators go up. Second floor, we start our parking. You can see we have the bicycle parking here, a lot of bicycles, scooters, and then you have tandem and standard spaces. Third floor, you start the workforce housing, which are the yellow units there. And then again, another parking level that's very similar. That's third through fifth, I apologize. So third, fourth, fifth are all the same layout. This is how the building kind of breaks down from a cross-section point of view. You can see again the ground floor entry to the elevator, elevators 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 3 levels of workforce housing units. Again, fully enclosed elevators and deep inside the building from Collins. Characteristics of the elevators, and this is laid out in our operational plan as well. They can both handle 8,000 pounds, which is far heavier than a Suburban or one of those large type of vehicles. 74 feet per minute, and they'll be 24/7 valet operated, which is required by the code. And that is, again, we believe there will be no operational issue with it. In our operational plan, we have details of how the maintenance, et cetera, will work. So, standards in my last 4 minutes. As staff notes in their recommendation, the Live Local Act prohibits the city from restricting the height and floor area of qualifying development. That means there are a couple of criteria in your code that talk generally about the scale of the building that uses mechanical or robotic parking or lifts. That's not relevant to this kind of application because state law prohibits the city from reviewing them in this context. So what does apply? First, is the mechanism, is the elevators fully enclosed? The answer is, of course, yes. It's deep inside a building, surrounded by solid walls. Is there a covenant that requires valet operation 24/7? We will be providing that prior to building permit. Has there been a traffic study provided that's been analyzes the operation of the project? Yes, we both have a traffic study prepared by Mr. Vargas that was reviewed by Transportation. And we've provided a detailed operational plan that's in your packages about the operation and the maintenance, et cetera. Speaking of operations plan, do we have an operations plan regarding maintenance, noise, et cetera? Yes, that's in your set as well, and staff has found it consistent. The other criteria is about, will this have a adverse impact on the surrounding neighborhood? Again, the use of these elevators are going to be fully enclosed, quiet. No one's going to see a vehicle on this property once it exits Collins Avenue. Will there be a negative cumulative impact? We believe no, right? This is, again, a very minor, small project. Just to give you kind of an insight, as the traffic study indicates, the maximum number of trips generated by this building in the PM peak is 19. That's less than 1 car per 3 minutes. 16 cars in the AM peak. So again, it's a very minor traffic impact coming in and out of the structure. So I promised this at the beginning. We do have our proposed modified condition. 2G, as Mr. Sieberling read to you, suggests that we narrow the width of the curb cut on Collins Avenue. The issue we have with that is that the city doesn't have ultimate authority about how that curb cut has to be designed. That's FDOT. We designed this curb cut based on FDOT's, our pre-app with them, et cetera. So I don't know if they're going to agree to anything, but we're willing to try, but we have to make that subject to their approval because that is their bailiwick. It's not the city's decision, it's FDOT. So we would ask for any motion in support of the application to include that modified condition so we can just clean that up. So, in summary. This is a very low impact use of this building completely. These elevators are going to be fully enclosed and have no negative impacts on our surrounding neighborhood. This project, which again, I know you're not reviewing the overall project, but it will be part of the solution for providing the missing middle housing in the city. And we're excited to be bringing this as well as other Live Local developments to the city because we think it really will help fill that gap as we go forward. So our whole team is here. We would ask for your approval, subject to staff's conditions as modified, and I'd like to reserve time for rebuttal. Thank you so much.
Okay, anybody in chambers to speak on this? No, oh.
Good afternoon, Tom Marinacki, property manager, Tower 1800. I was sworn in already. Our attorney has been in communication with their attorneys. The property is already approved for mechanical garage, robotic garage, which we worked with the developer years ago to build. I've stood in front of the planning board to close the so-called restaurant that turned into a nightclub when the parking garage didn't work. And luckily, there were conditional use things that were able to stop that club. We have not come to any agreement. We share the south wall currently, which is on the property line. And I would ask for a continuance of this mechanical use elevator until Tower 1800's, its attorney and board have come to some type of agreement with the developer.
What are some of the concerns that you,
Right, on
that
what,
you have?
agreement on
Currently,
what?
we have cars parked within 6 inches of the property. As he stated, your board does not have permission to deal with the setbacks, the heights, the requirements. But you do have the right to give us a continuance, to continue negotiations with them in specific use mechanical elevator or mechanical parking, which the property already currently is allowed mechanical parking for a robotic garage. So they can continue, and that would be a different meeting I'll need to attend in reference to setbacks, heights, and so forth.
Sorry, I'm just unclear. Can you be more specific of what you are asking them that you want to see happen with this, specific to the park?
To protect Tower 1800, I know there's an application in to knock down and rebuild a wall. Once again, this is a very specific application for a mechanical garage.
Right, I think that would be for another time, though. For another.
This is just one step towards the problem that needs to be resolved before anything gets approved on this project.
Are you currently in negotiations with them?
Yes.
And how far along are you in that process? And are you,
3 weeks, but what's been offered or said has nothing. So, once again, I have vehicles, I have owners, there's a lot that needs to be discussed before anything is approved for this project.
and is that something that
It's
they
up to him and our attorney at this point too. So I would ask for a 30 or 60-day continuance
Is that something they
to
have?
give
they
them
have-
time to negotiate.
So the board could continue the application.
And
Staff is not recommending the continuance. There is a shared site wall. That's part of the administrative review in terms of the overall Live Local project that we are looking at. This application is just very narrow.
Right,
In
that's-
accordance with the mechanical parking, and we do believe there's sufficient information submitted for the board to take
I mean,
action
We're
today.
only hearing the parking part. We're not hearing the building
The-
itself.
The parking part is part of the snowball effect that's going to happen here on this property. And the tower that shares the wall and the property is asking the planning board for a 60-day continuance at this point.
Are there going to be any noise issues from this, or are you anticipating any noise from the parking?
With the property next door, we've had problems with noise, the mechanicals, so forth, ever since the old property was put up.
Right, well, I guess this is going to be a
So-
brand-new property. I mean, it's going to be a new.
Well, that's the issue that needs to be negotiated. First, we share a wall. Our parking spots and bumpers literally go up to that wall, and the mechanical approval of the elevator is the first step of the snowball effect. So we need time to negotiate some protocols before approving anything on this project.
But I guess we're not totally understanding what sort of protocols are
Right.
you asking? Does it relate to the elevator, or does it relate to just that shared wall, which we may not have any control over?
Right.
Well, the elevator is part of the project to build this property.
But you already share a wall, correct? It's the same wall, it's just being reconstructed?
It's not a wall, it's actually a whole building that needs to be knocked down. And when they first built it, it was supposed to be 4 stories, which would match our parking garage. It's up to our 9th floor residential living units. So once again, I'm asking for some time for our attorneys as well as our board members and owners to have some clarification, both on the mechanical elevator that's going to be operating as well as the
I mean,
rest of the
I guess just for you all, you know, obviously you can understand putting up this huge building next to them. Do you have any opposition for a little extra time?
Couldn't help himself.
I couldn't help myself, I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. Actually, we love our neighbors, and they're very nice people, and, but I'll tell you, we do believe in live local. We do believe in affordability. We're a 6th-generation family, that many of our family members have moved to Hollywood and Boca, predominantly because there's no affordability on Miami Beach. This is not our only project. We have many live local projects that we're very proud of. But this is the only one that comes before you, and it comes before you on one issue and one issue only, and that is the elevators. Now, I will tell you that what existed in this property before was a robotic system, highest intelligence, that did not work. We just weren't ready for it then. Things take time. These elevators, they're old school elevators. They work. There's never any noise from them. They're not on the south side, they're on the north side. They're very functional. They've been on operation for over 100 years in many cities across America. They do not produce any noise at all. What a developer gets from Live Local is not only affordability, not only dealing with traffic, but it also deals with speed to permit. Speed to permit is the most important issue in the city of Miami Beach because I can tell you, my first condominium here in Miami Beach was 50 years ago. In 1976, I walked into Jack Fiddler's office on a Monday with 7 pages to build a 5-story building, 16 units, at 1612 Jefferson Avenue. I got that permit on a Thursday. In an effort to expedite the process, the city of Miami Beach, in their wisdom today, would require 700 pages and over a year to get a permit. Live Local, one of the basic and most important things it gives you is speed to permit. No delays, everything professionally managed, professionally run. That is what we get. We don't have to negotiate with the neighbor and pay fees to neighbors. Unfortunately, that has happened over time because of the amount of process we have created in Miami Beach. Process upon process upon process. We are a quality builder that builds the best across the nation in gateway cities, and we do it consistently. We do it respectfully to our neighbors, and we have told our neighbors, and we are happy to put it on record, that when we build professionally. We will do everything to reduce noise, to reduce wind conditions. We will do everything in our power, and we will build a quality project, which is what we want to do here. We will not agree to any extension. There is no basis for any extension, but I will assure you one thing. We will work in good faith with our neighbor, always, to make it the most comfortable way possible to build this building with the least amount of noise humanly possible as well.
So what
And I'd just like to last one thing. We're not sure that we have to take down the south wall yet. We are working with our engineers as an alternative to that. And if we can accomplish that, we would intend to do that to benefit our neighbors as well.
So what would be the next item on this particular property to come before the planning board?
Currently, we don't anticipate any additional requirements to appear at any of the boards. We have reviewed the Live Local application on multiple occasions. We still have some outstanding comments to be satisfied. Remember, we're also working with the city's transportation department as well as the public works department on the level of service requirements. But we don't anticipate any future land use board applications or public hearings on the matter. that could change if their plans change.
Is-
Certainly, if they were going to request any variances, that would require a Historic Preservation Board application, but at this time, that has not been presented to
Okay.
us.
Mr. Chair, we do not
Hold on,
plan.
Russell, hold on. Is there anybody else in chambers to speak on this?
I believe there's some people on.
I know, I'll get there. Anybody else in chamber? Have a seat, please, for a minute. Anybody on Zoom? Let's continue.
Yes, our
public hearing.
first speaker is Brian Powell.
Okay.
Brian, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you. You have 2 minutes.
Great. I am a resident at 1800 Collins, and, you know, just hearing about this project, it gives me pause because, you know, you're building a huge complex right next door to us, and, you know, it baffles me that this board doesn't have any say over setbacks or anything like that. It sounds like the building part's already been improved, and there was no public discourse on the whole matter of that issue. So it would be nice, as I agree with Tom, to have a continuance on this so that we as residents could really understand the whole scope of the project. And when it comes specifically to the elevators, you know, there has to be noise with that. And you're saying that something's going to be operating 24 hours a day. That's going to create noise for those elevators going up and down, taking cars. So I don't understand like how that's not going to be an issue. And I think that's something that also should be looked at.
Okay, thank you.
Debbie, before we call the next person, are there any disclosures on this item?
Yeah, I already asked. There was.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you. No, it's okay.
Our next speaker is Daniel Seraldo.
Daniel, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, thank you. Daniel Seraldo, resident, 730 10th Street. This project is part of Live Local, but it is very concerning. This is a state law that tries to put a one-size-fits-all on the entire state to encourage affordable housing. But here we see a great example that one size does not fit all. If you look at the floor plans, what's really happening, it's not 40% of the building being affordable, it's 40% of the units. And I believe that each of the 12 units in the 28-story building are about 400 square feet. And they're on the same level as a parking garage. So this is the first example to come before the citizens here at a public meeting. Everybody should be really alarmed about this. And also for the next door neighbors, it is really scary to think with all the shaking that goes on with new construction, those of us who are at Champlain after the collapse can see how this preemption is really putting our residents in a real safety risk. So I'm formally objecting to this project, and it also violates FAR and height in the zone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is a screen name of Josh.
Josh, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Josh.
Josh, if you can unmute yourself or, okay, I see him put his hand down, so I don't. Oh, Josh, are you here? Josh, we're having a technical difficulty hearing you. Okay, he hung up, I believe.
That's it? Okay. Close the public hearing.
I did want to perhaps give a slight bit of clarification on the document that we're discussing with Tower 18's council, 1800's council. We're working on an agreement for managing the construction process, as in discussing necessary easements or any, and that kind of agreement. That's what it's intended to do. We're not discussing, well, should the project be changed in any substantial way. It really is just the implementation of the project, including as our neighbor reminded us, the wall and Russell said whether we're keeping or not. So that's the scope of the discussions that are going on now. And again, in our opinion, that has nothing to do with whether or not this should have car elevators. We have a road to go with the entitlement process still. And we're recommitting to continue those discussions with Tower 1800 about construction process agreement. So with that, obviously,
Well, that's what I'm just grappling with, because I'm not sure, based on the narrow issue before us, whether that has any relevance to what you're negotiating. And I don't know what obligation you have to negotiate, but I'm assuming you want to be good neighbors and, negotiate in good faith, but,
You're 100% correct. We are good neighbors, and we are talking with our neighbor about the conditions of the construction, and I assure you, and I give you my word, we will continue to do so. We are relatively close to getting administrative approval, and the only other thing I'd like to address is Miami Beach, when it comes to Live Local projects, is a little bit behind time. I think we've approved one that I'm aware of, which was all workforce housing. And you look at cities like Miami that Eileen Higgins has become mayor of, she's completely reinventing the process of permits, whether they be for Live Local or any other type of permit. They're using AI. I think the city of Miami Beach needs to figure out how to do that as well. It's not about not giving public input. We want public input, always want public input. It's about providing for affordability. It's about dealing with traffic in a serious way. And it's about speed to permit and reinventing our systems. Process upon process doesn't work. We need to move forward. We are.
That's a whole nother issue.
Right, it's a whole nother issue, but we are really going through all of the criteria. The difference is we're doing it with professionals and in a very professional manner. And this project may be one of the first to actually be built on Miami Beach as a Live Local project. Miami has already approved 70. Miami Beach is still dealing with their first.
Yeah, Russell, the only issue, they're obviously your border neighbor, and we just want to make sure that they're,
They're
protected.
happy, and I
It's
want
gotta
to
be-
make sure.
We want it
that
to be a win-win for
Right,
everybody.
for
That's all.
everybody. And I just want to address one last thing. The elevators are in a completely closed building, completely closed. There will be no noise from those elevators. Everybody should know that I live on First Street. My parking garage on First Street is 2 elevators as well. No one has ever complained about those elevators. Even when this building was robotic, nobody ever complained about the robotic function of those elevators.
So, just so the board understands, what's the next, logistically, what happens next on this project?
So one of the outstanding comments on the Live Local application that's been reviewed by staff is this component, that prior to, we have several other outstanding comments, but one of the major conditions is that the applicant obtain conditional use approval for the elevators. Once the order has been rendered, and the appeal period of that order passes, that condition would be satisfied as part of our administrative review. We will, review all of the other outstanding comments, work with the applicant to ensure that those comments have been addressed.
And will you have any engagement with the neighbors?
What will happen is, once the application has been approved for the Live Local, we do send out a public notice. That notice will go to all property owners within 375 feet of the site. So that would include 1800. the
Which would
1800 condo.
enable them to do what?
It would enable them to give us feedback, give us comments, but there would be no
Nothing binding.
public hearing
Right.
that would be binding.
All right, but I'm assuming you would listen to them and,
Of course.
okay.
Yep.
All right.
If I can for a second.
All right, last thing, then we got to move on.
I understand,
Yeah.
but this project was halted last year at the historic department level, and then the Live Local Act came out. If they could, this would be a luxury condominium development. The Live Local Act is something that can go over the city's head. This is the one step where the planning board is here to protect the city as well as the neighbors and the neighborhood. And I ask for this continuance.
I understand.
For more information to get gathered and to protect not only 1800, 245 18th Street, the hotel behind, as well as Lloyd and the Dorchester. Some more time for clarity and to maybe slow down, because as Russell said, it's from permit to build. The first one in Miami Beach, very fast, and once you agree to this today or in 60 days, we have no rights and no protections in place.
other than the fact that you have to trust that there'll be neighbors and the
I
city
worked with
will listen.
Russell. I worked last
No,
time. I
understand.
rented space
I
to
understand.
put
I'm
up
just saying,
cranes.
it's not that you don't, you may not have legal rights, but you have the, hopefully the comfort of knowing that they want to
And the
be.
confirmation of the south wall,
Right.
whether, because once again, that's a foundational issue that you're going from a 4-story building
Right.
to a
All right.
15-story
We
building.
hear you. All
That's
right.
going to be over the current 18-story building that's next to it.
Graham, this is just a question. If there was a continuance, does that delay this whole project, or can you move forward with other issues? Russ, just relax, Russell.
I know what he's going to say. The
I'm
answer is,
just
of course, this
asking.
would delay it, because as Debbie said, we cannot get the issuance of the administrative site plan approval until this order is
All right, so you
issued.
can't move forward until this is resolved. Okay.
And we have to wait out the entire appeal period, so it's order,
Okay,
rendition.
that's all I needed to know.
so-
Okay.
yes.
I just wanted to make
And
sure.
you should
Because
know
if
that
there
we've
was,
been at
if
it
there
for
was
over
no
a year.
harm, then, yeah.
Right, and you should know that we've been at it for over a year already on
Yeah.
this particular project.
Okay. All right, we're closing the public hearing. Scott, questions?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the mechanical parking is concerned, I mean, I have faith that this won't, it's a totally inside, so I don't think it's going to have any effect. And obviously, if it's the majority of the units in there are going to be high-end, so I don't think they will put up with the squeaky elevator. But my question is for staff. I'm just curious on Live Local. Live Local addresses FAR, height. Does it address setbacks as well? Does it say that, in other words, how does it address that? The reason I bring that up is I'm just curious, because some areas in the city, we have certain existing setbacks, to protect maybe the building next door. And if it says you don't have to have a setback, then yeah, every building could be built right up to the property line. So I'm just curious on how it addresses setbacks.
So the Live Local Act, as amended by the legislature this year, restricts local governments from using setbacks to otherwise reduce the height of a building. That's how it's worded. So it's not like the preemptions as to height and FAR, where the preemption on height is that a Live Local Act project can be at the tallest height within a mile of the property, or that the FAR is 150% of the maximum FAR allowed anywhere in the city. The language on setbacks is a little vaguer, but it says that we cannot use setbacks to otherwise reduce the height of the building.
Okay. So on this particular property, assuming it wasn't a Live Local project and a developer came in and said, I'm building a building there to whatever the current zoning is, what is that setback on the side set? What are the side setbacks on that property?
This is located within the CD2 zoning district, so there are no setback requirements.
So they're not basically asking for sort of a variance for a setback. They're doing what would normally be.
Correct. And one thing, as part of our administrative review, even though this doesn't require going to one of the design boards, staff is reviewing all of these applications in accordance with our design-related criteria. And we do, we're preempted in terms of requiring certain things. But we do issue recommendations as part of our review that maybe aren't, that have more of a design component to them. And, the architects, Mr. Galbert and his team have been open to a lot of our design type recommendations, and we really appreciate that. So I think, we're doing as much as we can as a city. Nobody likes this preemption. We feel very strongly that the best process includes as much public input as possible. And unfortunately, that has been severely restricted in terms of the public's ability to impact directly a lot of these projects. But we will continue to work on the goal of increasing our housing stock. That is something that's very important. And Live Local is, at least currently, we see likely to, achieve some of the goal of increasing our affordable housing stock.
I'm in favor of a brief continuance of this, and I would make that motion. I don't, I think given the property's history of non-compliance with the mechanical elevators, as well as other problems with the properties, I think it's, the neighbors have fair concerns and need more time, and if we're asking for more input from the Miami Beach residents on these things, this is an opportunity for that, is just to give a short delay. I mean, I think hearing that this has been going on for a year, the project, I mean, for a project of this magnitude, that's, that's not that's record speed. And so I don't think it's in the interest of being good neighbors, I think we always up here encourage neighbors to work together and reach agreements. And if there's areas that they can work together, that's what we like to encourage. And so I think if there's a full building of residents next to this development that's going to be majorly impacted, potentially by the garage or the lifts, then I think it makes sense to continue it, an extra 60 days. I'm sure there's other things that can be going on. It sounds like there's things pending, review by the city that are going to be going on concurrently. And so I don't see a problem, moving it, 60 days and coming back, and, hopefully the neighbors can work together a little bit more.
What I would suggest, if the board is inclined to continue it, since the only thing before you is the request for mechanical parking, that you give the applicant specific comments about what you would like them to work on and bring back.
Well, first of all, we have to decide if that board's inclined to do that. So
Right.
Jonathan can make that motion, and let's see if it passes.
There's more comments there. Anyone else want to comment first for the motion?
Well,
I think some people have comments.
we can determine if it's going to be moved first, but is there a second are you making a formal motion to continue it?
Yeah.
All right. Is there a second on that? Nope. All right, so that fails. All right, any more let's go forward with comments.
No comments. Again, just what's within our purview is just the mechanical garage. Not really sure what else we can do. I understand generally the larger concerns from the, I guess, neighbors, but I think that's mostly going to be tied to the larger building that's going up, and that's just not within our purview. So I don't really know what additional progress is going to happen from any type of continuance, but again, unfortunately, it's out of our hands. But as it relates just to the mechanical garage, in favor. I do appreciate you because you were responsible for, I'd say, really shutting down a club that definitely had a very negative effect on the area, and you're a great advocate for for your building and neighbors, so thank you for that.
I echo those comments, Melissa.
Yeah, same thing. It's not about the whole project. We have to deal with what is being presented today with us and what we need to approve. So I hear your concerns, but I didn't hear a direct concern with this specific. So therefore, I'm inclined to keep it moving.
I also second those comments from Melissa and everyone else. I really do feel for you, but I can say this, you're getting a beautiful building, it looks to be, and 100 feet smaller than it could be. So, I mean, I understand. I do. Thank you. I just don't have the purview for that.
Okay, someone want to move it?
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay. You want to do roll call?
Sure. Mr. Needleman?
Yes.
Ms. Latone?
Yes.
Mr. Frieden?
Yes.
Ms. Cement?
Yes.
Ms. Beatty?
Yes.
And Mr. Elias?
Yes.
I appreciate that. Oh. Sorry, guys, can you hit the button? There it is. Is that with my slightly modified condition to clarify it on the driveway
With
entrance?
the DOT?
Yes, with the
Yes.
FDOT.
And I just one thing, please work with them to.
Oh, yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
going to recommit again. Absolutely.
It's a conundrum, for sure.
We know we've been neighbors for a long time. We're going to continue to be neighbors for a long time. So it's good for us to keep working, and we will.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, guys. Thank you. Next, new application is Planning Board filed 260829, 1691 Michigan Avenue lease agreement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a lease agreement for the existing property located at 1691. It's currently a parking garage and office structure. We have provided the extensive background of this property as part of our analysis. The initial ground lease of this property goes back to 1998. That lease has been modified and transferred many times between 1998 and today, but most recently, in 2024, the mayor and city commission approved the sale of the leasehold for a total purchase price of $62.5 million to RK Ravani LLC. The new leaseholder has gone through the design review board process. They are, in addition to purchasing the lease, they have committed to make a significant investment to the interior and exterior of the property. We do believe that the revived project will be a significant improvement in terms of upgrading the existing office facilities. They also are maintaining a ample degree of public parking. So we are supportive of this. They are currently requesting an extension, which is primarily why this is before the planning board today, that would extend the lease 2 additional 20-year terms, and that would be the 21/32 expiration date. This will also require authorization by the mayor and city commission as well as a public referendum. So today we're asking for a recommendation from the planning board to transmit to the city commission. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I know we do have representatives from our facilities management department available to answer any questions as well. Elizabeth Miro and Frank Garcia from the department are with us today.
Good morning. Thanks, Debbie and staff. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Nicholas Rodriguez, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, here representing RK Ravani LLC. I'm joined by my colleague Mitch Tozian and my partner Michael Larkin, as well as Patrick Corey from ownership from the Ravani Group. As Debbie summarized, this is one stop on our way to a referendum for this lease extension, and I think we're kind of running the gambit of different types of applications. We had legislative applications this morning, a zoning item, and now we've got a lease recommendation. So the full scope of what the planning board does before them today. So just getting right into the building, this is 1691 Michigan Avenue. It's located on the south side of 17th Street between Jefferson and Michigan Avenue. This was a redevelopment of a surface parking lot in the late 90s. And then it was a public-private partnership with the city. The highlighted provision there shows that a minimum of 100 spaces are designated for public parking within this garage. But in addition to those 100 spaces, the lease provides that during non-office hours, the entirety of the garage is open to the extent that the spaces are not being used by subtenants. So essentially, we have a 700-space garage. Sometimes it's used by the tenants, sometimes it's used by the public. And there is a minimum of 100 spaces and then a minimum of 50 monthly parking passes that we can provide. So just a preview of the building itself on the left side, and this is how it will look after the renovations are completed. You may have seen on your way in today that the building is covered in scaffolding. It's currently under construction as what we call the Phase 1 improvements, which is a complete recladding of the facade. This is how it's supposed to look when it's done. It's 6 levels of retail, office, and general commercial at 2.13 FAR, just leaving a little bit of FAR on the table for a potential addition. And then on the right side is an over 700 space parking garage that is currently very underutilized. So I will turn it over to Patrick to describe how the Phase 1 changes have really improved the revenues of the building and have brought record rent payments to the city over the last couple of years.
Good morning, board. Patrick Corey, Chief Operating Officer for Ravani. Pleasure to be in front of you guys today.
As Nicholas mentioned, just kind of want to go into a little bit of what we've been able to accomplish since we purchased it 2 years ago. When we purchased the building, as you'll note above, about 76% of the tenants in place were rolling within the next 5 years. One of the biggest tenants of the building was Wix, publicly traded company, formerly had their name on the building. They had gone dark on over 25,000 square feet. So we bought this as a depreciating asset, knowing that we had the opportunity to really reposition it. Over the last 2 years, we've invested $50 million of our own money. That includes the facade that Nicholas just mentioned. It includes renovation of the lobby, the valet, adding third floor amenities to the space, and all corridors within. Some of the tenants that we signed, we brought in Maple Lane Capital from Chicago, their first Miami outpost. Divi Sidero Capital also moved their headquarters from Coconut Grove to Miami Beach, as the principal had recently bought a home here. Dr. Agason, longtime resident and tenant of Miami Beach, signed a 7-year extension. We signed 2 supplementary medical offices that are moving their headquarters to Miami Beach. One is a stem cell transplant, the other is a longevity doctor. We signed Monarch Athletic Club, first location from Beverly Hills, California to Miami. H-Wood is going to be running our speakeasy. Damon John from Shark Tank is moving his headquarters here. So we've got a tremendous amount of traction of folks who want to be in Miami Beach. Our office alone has our headquarters in there. We built about 5,000 square feet. 25% of our employees are now Miami residents who walk here. So we really feel that this is an overall great project for Miami Beach and for the residences. Some of the Phase 1 improvement items that we've brought to you all before, DRB had a modification to the facade. DRB also had addition of the valet. And then, of course, for the speakeasy, we went to BOA. So a number of these projects, as I mentioned, are in construction right now. All of them expected to be completed within the next 60 to 90 days.
I want to make sure I have the right building. Was there a Mr. Owen Pizza there at one point?
No, that's across. That's 1680, directly in front of us,
1680,
just
got it.
west. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we're here to discuss is the parking garage. So we have this, as Nick noted, 712 parking space garage that over the last 2 years that we've operated, plus the prior 3 years of reporting, have noted that this is incredibly underutilized. We're only getting about 5% average of transient occupancy. That's really a result of, on both the west and east side, there is covered floor public parking that makes it easier for folks who are coming in and out of Lincoln Road. They can park on the ground level, they can park on street level. We really aren't getting much traction here. So we currently have, as noted on there, 630 parking spaces available to the public, but again, only 5% of them is being used. With the demand that we are seeing from the office space on the true office side component, we see an opportunity to continue to bring these caliber of companies to Miami Beach to betterment the overall. So the floor area on top of the parking garage, which was the aerial that Nicholas had showed, there's approximately 47,000 square feet of floor available area, maximum height of 100 feet, and approximately 387 parking spaces in excess requirement for the existing uses. Our Phase 2 improvement is basically proposing to spend an additional $50 million to add 36,000 square feet of a leasable floor area for additional office, and then 6,000 square feet of rooftop restaurant, and finally 3 padel courts to continue with our health and wellness that's at the forefront of our building. We've got some before and kind of after. This is the existing rooftop, as we mentioned. Here are the renderings that we've put together. You can see on the southeast side of the building is where the office and restaurant would go. And then on the south and west side is where the padel courts would be. Turn it back over to Nick. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. So I was reminded in preparation for this meeting that you are the planning board, and although there hasn't been a lot of concern about the parking, you all might be concerned and want to understand how this building is going to be parked. We're reducing parking while adding square footage, but the reality is that this building has so much surplus parking that even reducing 250 spaces from the garage, mostly on the rooftop, adding an additional 42,000 square feet of area, we'd still have enough parking with 37 spaces left over, and this would be, and including the 100 minimum parking spaces. This is kind of a worst-case scenario. We're estimating about 250 spaces would be impacted. That would be the roof, plus whatever else would need to be impacted on other levels of the building. So that would be a maximum impact per the terms of our proposed lease amendment, and we just wanted to drive home the point that this building has plenty of parking to serve serve the uses, serve the public. Right now, it's just an inefficient use of the square footage of the building. So getting into the finances, which is really what's driving this, we've done projections. The way the lease works is it's a base rent term plus a percentage of the gross income, and every 5 years it escalates. So as purchased, the Rivani entity would, if they would have just kept everything the same, the city would have enjoyed about $28 million of income over the current life of the lease before the first extension kicks in. Once Rivani came in and did the phase 1 improvements, leased up the building, and the proposed phase 2 improvements would be about 54 million, nearly doubling the amount of income that's coming in from this building. So it's a net increase of about $25 to $26 million over the 30-year period of the lease. And we'll see kind of how we get to those numbers shortly. So these are the proposed amendments. I know it's a very wordy slide, but just trying to get through everything so we can be thorough and clear as to what we're requesting. As Debbie mentioned, it's an extension to 20-year options. At each option period in the lease, there is a readjustment of the rent that's based on appraisal of the land value. We're asking to place a cap on how much that rent can increase. Right now, it's basically just an open-ended question mark as to how far the city may increase the rent at those option periods, and it's something that makes the project financially infeasible to finance. Then once the phase 2 improvements would be completed and the tenants have a chance to build out their spaces, the base rent would increase to $500,000. Right now, the base rent is somewhere around $390,000, so it's a significant increase in base rent. In addition, we would be bumping the percentage rent from 2.5% to 3% of the building's gross revenues. So that's how we're really increasing the amount of revenue and funds that are going to the city. The better that we do, the better that the city does, but there is a guaranteed minimum of $500,000 a month that they would get from this project. The remaining 3 amendments at the bottom are really all addressing the ability to impact the garage. The lease was done originally in a manner as to not allow the master tenant to reconfigure the building to reduce parking spaces. So we are asking for this amendment to be able to reduce from a minimum of 700 spaces to a minimum of 425 spaces, maintaining the 100 spaces for the public and the 50 monthly parking passes. This would still have to go to the design review board. The city manager would still have to sign off on that application as the owner of the property, but the city manager would have the authority to allow us to apply to the DRB to seek a reduction in parking spaces. And last but not least, there was a bit of a scrivener's error in the lease that incorrectly identified the height of the building. The maximum permitted height is 80 feet. We're allowed to go to 100 feet here, so we just want to clarify that in the new lease. So there is also a public benefit package going along with this, and I will tell you that this is constantly evolving up to last night, and this morning is continuing to change. But the general thrust of this is it's $1 million plus an annual recurring benefits allocated in different ways that is being driven mostly between the administration and the elected officials. So Mr. Rivani's primary purpose here is to contribute something to Lincoln Road, not just with his building and the additional foot traffic it's going to generate, but also a cash contribution in association with this lease amendment. That's the first item on the list, and that will not change. There will be a substantial contribution to Lincoln Road. What we really want is some type of children's activation, but we're working with the administration as to how to achieve that in context with the current James Corner plan for Lincoln Road. Some of the other items have been worked on with the elected officials. So a 17th Street master plan, something that just came up recently was potentially contributions towards funding improvements to buildings that are showing their age a little bit in the Palmview neighborhood and the 17th Street corridor. So it's something that we're working with the administration and the elected officials on how we can route money to certain buildings. I think the Cuban Hebrew Synagogue is right across the street from our building. They need some funds to help maintain and improve their building. Then there's contributions to the Sister Cities program. We're trying to tailor these to Lincoln Road, so that potentially would be a Sister Cities event on Lincoln Road. There's a contribution to senior programs, and then a contribution for Lincoln Road businesses to satisfy Blue Zone criteria. As we all know, the city is really invested in wellness initiatives. A big public benefit, in addition to the monetary contributions, is that we'll be offering the city's parking department passes within the garage for free, and then the city's going to sell those passes at a discounted rate to low-income employees. So the parking director, Will McDonald, asked us for 110 passes, and we're giving those to him for free, and he's going to allocate that program so that employees in South Beach and Lincoln Road can park in this garage. And with that, I believe, one last slide, Mr. Chair, is just the impact to Lincoln Road, the additional foot traffic that this building, this office building generates. We've done an entire economic analysis, but this one is really what this project is about improving and giving life to Lincoln Road, not just in the evenings when the restaurants and people are off work, but during the day when people are coming to activate this building. So thank you very much, and we're asking for your favorable recommendation today.
Okay, anybody in chambers to speak on this? Anybody on Zoom?
Any disclosures?
No? All right, we'll close the public hearing. Any questions from the board? Someone want to move it?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, or morning, or whatever it is right now. I'd like to know about the restaurant. Is it open to the public?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
and-
it's not, there's not a restaurant,
Well,
but
I
yes,
mean,
the unit
would,
is.
would it
yeah.
be open to the public?
Yes.
And the rooftop also, are those public amenities as well? Hi.
Hi, how are you? Just ultimately, honestly, depends on, number one, we can't really get into any kind of lease negotiations with anybody until we
Right.
have this approved. But our theory is that it would be some kind of a, think of a members club, or it could be an office space similar to at 18 Sunset, how AP has the rooftop and they can utilize the pool. So there's a number of variations that we can do, but the office building, the restaurant would certainly be open to the public or highest bidder. So it just kind of depends on how it goes.
Okay, and in regards to the public benefits, I actually feel like maybe we could recommend that those public benefits, some of them actually benefit the public. Some look to be a little, I just feel like they should actually all benefit the public. And I don't know if that's a recommendation that we could make, but.
What do you mean, what are the benefits that
You
you're
know,
not?
I'm actually referring to.
These were the commissioners that made these requests.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
Someone want to move it?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? Anyone opposed? All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
Looks like a nice project. Thank you. All right, going on to comprehensive plan and code amendments. The first is Planning Board File 260824, GU zoning district LDR amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a very limited land development regulations amendment specific to the GU district, which is a government use district. These are areas that are owned by either the city or another government entity. In particular, what this amendment would do is that for government-owned properties, specific to the performance standard districts. The performance standard districts are the only zoning districts in the city. They're all located south of 6th Street that include both a minimum required front setback as well as a maximum required front setback. So they're basically mandating a very strict build-to line for properties. One thing that I've had experience with throughout my history here is that this is something for private properties even. Going through Historic Preservation Board review, the board has consistently over the years actually approved variances for that maximum setback just to allow for additional flexibility in terms of urban design and design. In particular, with this instance, however, when we started looking at the GU districts south of 6th Street, it became very clear that this inflexible nature of a very strict build-to line would actually prohibit things like, small bathroom structures being built in a park. Smith and Walensky couldn't, their buildings do not comply with this regulation. The existing, properties at One Ocean Drive would not comply with this. for it to comply, we would basically have to eliminate all of the public parking spaces and other public amenities that we want, within that front yard area. So with that, we are recommending that the planning board transmit this amendment with a favorable recommendation to the mayor and city commission to allow that level of flexibility with public properties and introducing, much-needed public amenities within the district. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much, Debbie. I don't think I can improve upon that very much, so I'm just going to go very quickly. Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Savage with law offices at 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, Miami, Florida. I'm here representing Boucher Brothers Pier Park LLC, which is the concessionaire that's going to be redeveloping and operating the formerly Nikki Beach site. I'm joined today by Benjamin Cherry of my firm, Michael Larkin, and also Aaron Tandy, who serves as the general counsel for the Boucher Brothers entities. As Debbie says, this is really a code cleanup that is here to really clean the underbrush of an unintended consequence and actually allow for some flexibility. I think a couple things to just point out quickly is that this is the city's application to clean up the code. And also this will only apply to GU properties, which by definition are owned by the city. And for example, in our applications, the city is an applicant or a co-applicant and actually signs the application. So in terms of a regulatory body, there's no one that's going to take any sort of advantage here. This is only going to be on properties over which the city has a tremendous amount of control. So if I could just pull up the PowerPoint presentation, and I'm just going to quickly provide some visuals that will be bolted on, if you will, or illustrate some of the things that Debbie was explaining to us. This is the property here that, as you all well know, on One Ocean Drive, the decades-long location of the Nikki Beach facility. And this is the GU zoning district here, which will be relevant to this particular code amendment. As Debbie was explaining, this is an interesting part of our code whereby the GU does not have its own development regulations, but rather borrows from the adjacent zoning district, and then you do an average of those two zoning districts, which makes for an interesting application on behalf of applicant attorneys and also staff as we work through to average them. And here we have the RPS 4 residential high density and the CPS 1 commercial performance standard. And we have a chart here coming up showing, we put our noodle on this. We saw that one is a 5 feet minimum and maximum. Again, minimum and maximum means a build to line, that you shall build to that. Most all other setbacks we work on as zoning council is a minimum. You know, if you want to set your house back a little more and give your neighbors some more room and some more, insulation in that regard, that's great. That's your business. But this is actually a minimum and maximum really imposing a build to line. So we put the 5 feet from one zoning district, the 0 from the other, and come down at 2.5 feet as the applicable average. And on this site, it makes really no sense. This is an unintended consequence where we would actually, destroy a public parking facility that's required in the front. And the unusual configuration of this site has the public sidewalk actually interior to the lot line. So a compliance here would actually invade the existing sidewalk and do violence to many other policies about a broad thoroughfare going to the beach, et cetera. So no one involved in this wants this. Again, it's just an unintended consequence. Our office did do the research, and we found out that it was really aimed at private condominiums to bring first floor amenities up to the the pedestrian experience, et cetera, and avoid a condo that's got, for example, a guard shack with only a car can get in. That would undermine our urban fabric. So it was never really intended to apply to these GU properties, which are special and are different, and we need a lot of flexibility. This is the text, and the last underlined part is really the relevant one, where it says there shall be no maximum setback. So we're just imposing a standard minimum setback, and it won't be this build two-line business. This is the application on our site. We've got a large setback in the front mandated by the 72 parking spaces that we have to maintain, and then smaller setbacks on the north and south to allow for the, not to interfere with the existing sidewalks. Again, here's our parking area. If we can just keep clicking through here, this illustrates how we would come into the sidewalk. No one wants that. This is the condition in the real world now. And it shows what would happen to the sidewalk. Now, lastly, this is a citywide code amendment applicable to all GU properties. We collected some other ones. I think Debbie identified some of these in her presentation. And again, if the city were to ever redevelop these city-owned properties, we would not want to constrain them to some sort of a 2.5 foot or other really intense build-to line. With that, we're really are asking for your favorable support. This was unanimously referred initially by the city commissioners, and we would just like your favorable support to go ahead and clean up the code and take it to the commission.
Thank you. Anybody in chambers speak on this? Anyone on Zoom? Okay. Questions from the board? No?
I do.
Elizabeth?
So even though this is presented as a minor setback clarification, it allows government-owned properties to ignore the same urban design standards required of private properties, particularly in performance standard areas where buildings must maintain a consistent street edge. This weakens pedestrian-oriented design and alters neighborhood character. So together with all of these, it allows, one of these ordinances expands allowable uses citywide, and the other one loosens how those uses are built. This is just a shift in how public land can be developed citywide, including parks, beachfront land, all of it. It sets a very broad precedent, and without fully addressing impacts to public use, open space, or existing protections. I'd like to hear from the board on those comments, if you have anything. No?
What were your concerns with this?
That it allows development of every single parkland, all of them, all of our parking lots, all of our parks, all over the entire.
We're applying this to a small zone, though, aren't we?
No, it's citywide.
So no, I'm sorry, I just have to respond. The text amendment does not do that. What the text amendment does, if anything, is correct a little bit of a glitch in the regulations, which impose a maximum setback. This is not about minimum, it's about maximum setback, thereby limiting development from providing, on GU property, right? Thereby limiting development on GU property from providing larger setbacks.
You can't build on citywide parks right now, but this would allow it.
No, that's not what this does.
This says it's modified, okay.
So the text amendment addresses the maximum setback requirement, which is, I think, Debbie can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a little bit of a glitch. Normally, the code sets minimum setbacks for development, but a larger setback could be provided, right? And then the second part of this is the change to the future land use map designation.
This applies to all GU properties, including parks and beachfront land.
So just to clarify, the only GU properties located within the city of Miami Beach that currently have a maximum setback are the GU properties located south of Sixth Street. So none of the other GU properties
Have this.
have that. The other GU properties are going to include a minimum required setback. But maximum is unique to the performance standard districts, which are only south of Sixth Street. I think the challenging aspect of this, and when we look at those specific properties south of Sixth Street that are GU, is that the vast majority of them do not comply currently. South Point Park, for example, if we wanted to put a bathroom in South Point Park, we would have to put it 5 feet from the property line. It wouldn't be allowed to be set into the park and hidden or in a proper location where it would benefit the public the most.
Why do we want things set closer into the park? Why wouldn't we want it set closer to the street? I'm trying to understand all of this.
And I think there may be instances, especially given these large public facilities, where we want public parking lots. Or where we want, because of park programming in terms of, active and passive required uses or desired uses by the community, there may be a desire to, locate the park pavilion not fronting on the street. We want to locate it where it's going to have the most public use and the most public benefit. So I think just allowing for that flexibility, it wouldn't preclude, someone proposing to be at that built setback line. But it also wouldn't mandate it, which would alleviate the need for a variance. Currently, the Design Review Board or Historic Preservation Board could grant a variance from this, and they often do, at least in my experience with the Historic Preservation Board. So this would, in my opinion and in my experience, this would just create a more flexible set of regulations for our, public amenities. But any project here, and I think this is very important, still requires going through Design Review Board. So the concerns you brought up about the urban, design and pedestrian compatibility and why that built to line was put in place. It was put in place as an urban design mechanism. And all of those aspects of the project are still going to be reviewed by the city's Design Review Board, because that is part of their review criteria. It just eliminates the technical setback requirement.
So if somebody wanted to build something in, say, North Shore Open Space Park, they could do it? No?
This current regulation does not affect that whatsoever, because those do not have maximum setbacks.
Didn't you show?
Small
Allison?
structures are permitted within city parks. They have to be consistent with the city's comprehensive plan in terms of the use. But yes, in all of our parks, I think, or the vast majority, we have bathroom structures. South Point Park also has a concession structure.
But those are normally set back towards the street so that you protect your dune system and you protect the beach and all of those things, correct?
I mean, not always. If you look at Flamingo Park, for example, there's dozens of structures.
That's not on the beach.
So this particular property does have requirements in terms of a dune preservation overlay as well as an oceanfront overlay. There are required setbacks from the rear of the property. And, we have very sensitive regulations for the easternmost portions of these properties for resiliency and sustainability, but also there are state requirements that are very strict in terms of what can be done once you get close to the ocean. Because I think that almost this entire property is probably seaward of the coastal construction control
But
line.
this is not just applicable to this property, correct? To
It is not. It
ocean.
would be, this change, and it's specific to the
that's what I'm
maximum
worried
setback,
about.
would be applicable to not mandate that 5-foot setback for GU property south of Sixth Street. But that's the only applicability for this particular
So
ordinance.
it would not be, say, Allison Park or 53rd Street or any of those?
It would not change any of the current regulations for those areas.
What's current right now?
Correct.
Okay.
So,
I have to ask these questions, and also that it's important that the public knows something too, so.
Go ahead.
All right, so I'll make a motion to move it favorably.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? All righty. Unanimous. All right, next is Planning Board File 260825, One Ocean Drive Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map amended. Assuming the same representation?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, if staff can just give a very brief summary. So this is specific to the One Ocean Drive property, and the request is to change the future land use map to what is currently recreation open space to public facilities. So currently, the property, again, it has a recreation open space, which allows for only very extremely limited park-related and open space-related structures and uses. This current property has been functioning for decades as non-conforming to the current comprehensive plan, future land use. So all of this is doing is reconciling the uses that have been occurring on this site for 3 decades to what is currently, which would be the public facilities. And let me just read for the benefit of everyone. For public facilities designation, that would expand the allowable uses to government uses, to parking facilities, affordable or workforce housing, various types of commercial uses, including businesses and offices, retail sales, service establishments, and eating and drinking establishments. It also includes public-private marina developments. Now, this would also be consistent with the terms that have already been approved by the Mayor and City Commission for this site. I think we don't have the concession agreement before you today, but that is going back to the Mayor and City Commission. Will likely come before you in the next month or two, and then ultimately will also require voter approval. But currently, the direction from the Mayor and Commission is to have uses that are not only consistent with what has been on the property, but also to expand options for more family-friendly beach club type uses. So staff has no objection to this. We are recommending that the planning board transmit this with a favorable recommendation to the Mayor and City Commission. Again, this is, in my view, just reconciling what the uses have been for decades on the site with our future land use map.
Okay. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm sorry my training will make me say it again real fast. Paul Savage with offices at 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, Miami, Florida, here representing the concessionaire Boucher Brothers Pier Park LLC. This is a companion item, as Debbie explained to us, that goes to the future land use map, which is currently ROS, which is recreation and open space, including waterways. It's been that way for decades. If we can show the PowerPoint presentation, I'll show you that there's the site again. Here's the future land use map of the city. You can see the ROS where we are there on the Atlantic Ocean. And I'll point out that this site at Nikki Beach has been there for decades under ROS with no problem, as well as the Smith and Walensky site is also ROS. But as Debbie was explaining, this application, we have an opportunity here to update things that have been going on for 30 years. And this was an opportunity to have a more refined and accurate comprehensive plan policy future land use map designation for the site. This is the ROS, which is the recreation and open space. It does have some of the uses that we're going to have, but not all the commercial uses. Also, there was a sort of warning, if you will, in the RFP document that was published that whoever is the concessionaire, which we are, may have to amend the use on the site under the future land use map. So just to make perfectly clear, and in an abundance of caution, as Debbie explained, we're going to go ahead and tighten this up in this round. What we thought and what city staff believes to be a more accurate future land use map designation is the government use permitted uses or public facility. And this has a more fulsome list, if you will, of the permitted uses, including expressly retail sales and eating and drinking establishments, which we thought was important to enumerate. And lastly, staff actually educated us on this requirement. When you do a small-scale future land use map amendment like this, there are certain consistency standards and level of service standards that have to be met, and the city as a whole has to keep so many acres of ROS, and the staff evaluated this, and we would still have ample ROS across the city, and this would not be a violation. So with that, again, to have as Debbie says, a more accurate recitation, we'll go ahead and update this, and we respectfully request that you support the city's application with a favorable recommendation to the City Commission. Thank you.
Anyone in chambers on this? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, close the public hearing.
Motion.
I have a question. This allows for residential uses in all of the GU properties changing to PF?
No, now this one, Elizabeth, I can make perfectly clear, is only this site.
Okay.
And as Debbie mentioned, unlike a more typical applicant, hi, I'm here, I have a condo or something, we are highly regulated under the concession agreement. So the scope of activity is actually mandated on us by the city's contract. So for example, if we wanted to do townhouses one day because that would be really lucrative or something, not allowed, the city manager would get us in huge trouble. So we have to have, I mean, it's down to you shall have these restaurants, you shall have this kids club, you shall have various things, and so that's all we can have here.
You're not going to build a pier or anything like that off
No, I would like that personally, but no, we're not allowed to have that, no.
I'm trying to be transparent for anybody listening. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
There's
Motion.
no other questions. Yeah, you want to go ahead and make the motion?
Yeah, motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? All right, passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you
guys.
very much.
Appreciate it.
This is not, lunch was delivered.
Behave.
I don't know.
Okay, next is planning board file 26.
Can we take a recess?
Lunch
Just-
has been
I want-
delivered, just wanted to
Oh.
let you know that.
Take a break, take a break.
Sure, we'll take a 10-minute break.
Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Remember to speak into the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded for public record. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for the deference for the quick lunch break. We are on to item 10 on the agenda, Planning Board File 260827, North Beach Residential Incentives, LDR Amendment, and a companion item, Planning Board File 260828, North Beach Residential Incentives Comprehensive Plan Amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This residential incentives text amendment and comp plan amendment are part of a broader initiative by the city in strategic areas throughout the city limits to provide for incentives, zoning incentives for permanent, non-transient residential uses. Many of our residential districts allow for either residential and or hotel. Anywhere hotel is allowed is also, we're preempted from restricting short-term rentals. So what we're seeing throughout a lot of these residential districts is while we have a lot of residential units, many of those units are being used as short-term rentals. In order to take advantage of these incentives, a property owner would need to restrict the property through a covenant that would not permit short-term rentals of these properties that take advantage. So currently, the property owner located at 6747 and 6757 Collins Avenue approached the city and is requesting that basically the existing incentives, which are in Mid-Beach between 47th Street and 63rd Street, be extended northward from 63rd Street to the 6800 block of Collins Avenue. The height in the FAR would be consistent with what has already been approved as an incentive for the Mid-Beach area. It would include an FAR of 3.5 and a maximum height of 220 feet. That is limited to properties that are a minimum of 40,000 square feet. These are not substantial increases for the RM3. The RM3 currently allows up to a 3.0 FAR and currently allows for a 200-foot height limit. So the requested increases are, again, they're consistent with what we have included as incentives just south of these properties, and they are not substantially increasing what is currently allowed. We are supportive. We are recommending that the planning board transmit this with a favorable recommendation. However, we do have some recommendations. Primarily, we are recommending that the reduced setbacks for the subterranean areas of the property not be recommended in favor for. Staff does not believe that, these subterranean areas that are proposed to be at 2 feet setback on all sides are benefiting the neighborhood or the city's resiliency initiatives. The further east you go, you have very sensitive environmental conditions, and we would not be supportive of reducing any of the currently allowed subterranean setbacks. We also are not supportive of substantially reducing the allowable density, as we had previously discussed, and as is part of the reasoning to provide these incentives is to increase our housing stock. By limiting severely the allowable density, all that's doing is removing some flexibility to provide not only the ultra-luxury units, but also more attainable units, which, may or may not be practical or financially viable for oceanfront properties, but we certainly wouldn't want to take away someone's ability to add smaller units that would be more obtainable than ultra-luxury large units. So we would recommend that those two provisions not be favorably recommended, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. This is a process, right? Because the FAR increase, even though it's not a significant FAR increase, does require this board to have an initial review, which is what's happening today. After today, well, so we are, while we're supportive of the ordinance, we're asking the board today to continue this so that staff can hold a public workshop. The public workshop will hopefully occur sometime in May, and we could bring this back to you at the June meeting. If we are not able to schedule the public workshop in May, this will likely come back to you at the July meeting, but at this point, we're hopeful that we will be able to find a date and have the public workshop. After the public workshop, we will transmit any, the comments that we hear back to this board. We will issue the same recommendation. Then it will be transmitted to the mayor and city commission, which will have first reading. We will schedule an additional public workshop, and then we will schedule a second reading in front of the commission.
When do you think this, if you can't get this, since it is May already, and you can't get a public workshop done in May, when in June do you think?
Well, we were hopeful we can get something scheduled for May. We work with, the city's communications department
It's pretty
to.
tight coming up with Memorial Day.
And correct, it may not be possible, but we're hopeful. Then we would bring this back to you in July. And then, commission would be September, October. The second reading of the commission currently for FAR increases would not be able to occur until October anyways. So there's a little bit of flexibility built in, depending on when we're able to schedule these public meetings.
So, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board member, staff, Michael Larkin, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, here today representing the owner of a property that is positively impacted by this legislation. So we, of course, are here in support of the legislation. We representing BTL Investments LLC, owners of the property at 6747 Collins Avenue. Diego Colmenero and Charlie Porchetto are the principals behind that entity. Longtime fixtures in our city. They have cobbled together a great group of hotels along Fifth Street when no one wanted to go to Fifth Street, but they did, and they were successful down there, so they should earn all sorts of recognition for that effort. I'm also here with my colleagues Nick Rodriguez and Mitchell Tozian. Can we pull up the presentation? Next slide. So here are the properties that Diego and Charlie owned, vacant lot, platted 2 lots. It is just north of the Deauville Assemblies, which you all are familiar with, and just south of the Sterling Condominium Association. Next slide. This is a project that has been approved by the Historic Preservation Board and this board. It's a hotel project. 200 feet in height, 160 hotel units, 3 restaurant venues, an intense use, a good use, but an intense use. And as we went through the process, the Sterling residents could not have been more kind and accommodating, but they also expressed concerns about the intensity of the use. So after we obtained our approvals, Charlie and Diego started thinking, is there a better way forward, a less intense use that's more in keeping with the city sentiment now to reduce dependence upon hospitality and increase the long-term residential unit supply. So this effort that you are seeing today is a result of that thought process. Next slide. So as Debbie mentioned to you, we're not reinventing the wheel here. In 2024, the city came forward with this residential use incentive legislation, not only for Mid-Beach, which we used as a model, but also in the West Avenue corridor and in the Ocean Drive, south of 5th neighborhood corridor. Next slide. Here is the Mid-Beach corridor. It's from 47th to 63rd. It allows a 3.5 FAR, height 220 feet, and for lots greater than 45,000 square feet in size. Next slide. So we're proposing an extension, really, and we're relabeling it the North Beach Residential Use Incentive District. It's from 63rd Street to the northern boundary of the Sterling condominium parcel. It applies to RN3 zoned oceanfront properties greater than 40,000 square feet in size. So just a 5,000 square foot reduction from what the Mid-Beach looks at as the minimum lot size. Next slide. This is more of the particulars of the legislation. Again, 3.5 FAR, 220 feet in height, We are looking for a density reduction. We feel the density reduction is important because not only does it reduce traffic, it reduces calls to the police, calls to the ambulances, and reduces the school population on what is an overburdened school system. And then we're looking for setback relief for the subterranean parking levels. We can clarify that we're looking for setback relief on the interior side yards, which is the north and south side of the property, to 2 feet, but we can observe the regular setbacks along the east next to the dune, and the front setback would be about 10 feet. That's based upon an early site plan I saw, but we don't want 2 feet all around. That would be too much. Next slide. So to give you an idea, our lot size is just under 42,000. Current maximum FAR is 2.25. That gives you just over 90,000. Under the incentive FAR, it increases to 3.5, 145,000 and change. Current maximum height is 200. The incentive maximum height is 220. If this incentive legislation is adopted, this will give us an additional 50,000 square feet of floor area for these residential units. Next slide. With regard to the density analysis, you see what's up to 150 units acre now. It could be 143 units. The incentive maximum density is 75. That would give us 71 units, but in truth, we are really looking to construct no more than about between 30 to 40 residential units. It's going to be really high-end luxury product. Next slide. And of course, with a reduction in the potential density, you have reductions in traffic. The traffic, the new external trips you see is negative 42, exiting trips, negative 18, reduction of entering trips, negative, so it's all in the negative category. You're going to have trip reduction in any category you look at from this property. Next slide. This is what it could look like. Note that the boxy pedestal, as nice as it was, designed by Arquitectonica, it does create some hindrance to air and light, and does not help with view corridors. With the subterranean parking underground, you can see that it really opens up the view corridors, not only south toward the Deauville, but of course to our residential neighbor to the north of Sterling. Next slide. This is a height diagram comparison. You see 6747 right there in the middle. The Deauville, as approved with the overlay that you all participated in, is 300 feet, and the Sterling is about 200 feet. Next slide. This is a massing study. Ours is the most white right in the middle. Of course, the Deauville is to the south, Sterling to the north, Kenya Ranch a little bit farther north. Next slide. And that's it. As Debbie mentioned to you all, your role here is an informational role to toss ideas, suggestions at us. We'll look at all of them, consider them. This is a long process. This is the first of 6 hearings that we have to go through.
Right, so you're in agreement to continue for the public
Yeah.
outreach, okay.
Yeah, we'll do that. And
The only problem is your clients are kind of bad guys.
they're very tough on me, Brian, very tough. But you know, look, we'll come back to you all in May or June, depending upon when we get that virtual neighbor workshop together. And we'll take consideration any suggestions you all have today and come back to you all with some legislation that has probably been tinkered with and provide more clarity, particularly when it comes to the subterranean setbacks.
Okay. You guys don't want to speak, do you? Anybody in here want to speak on this item? All right, anybody on Zoom?
Nada?
You sure? You're so articulate and handsome and, anybody on Zoom?
Yes.
That's a disclosure, Brian.
I will disclose, he's a good friend.
We have Rick Topchi.
That's,
Hi, good afternoon.
How are
My
you,
name is
Rick?
Topchi. Good afternoon. This is Rick Topchi. I'm president of the board of directors of the Sterling, just north of this property. And I want to say I'm excited to see this finally coming to a sense of direction. Generally, I personally am in favor of the development, so I hope to learn more about it during the public workshop and get some more support and momentum behind them. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Anybody else? That's it? Elizabeth?
hi. Thanks, Rick. I know you're listening. So I have a couple of questions. Why did you go all the way to 63rd Street?
There's always a claim about spot zoning.
Yeah, but,
So we figure that if we started down there, it encompasses 9 properties. And of those 9 properties, we look at the Casablanca, which I think could take advantage of it, less so the Monte Carlo, the Sherry Frontenac, of course. But we felt that was, I wanted to go 63rd all the way up to 72nd. I thought that would even be a more impressive expansion of this residential use incentive legislation, to have actually people take advantage of it. Staff had said, well, let's be cautious. Let's have a smaller district to start with, and obviously it can be expanded in the future once it starts taking off.
okay, so I'm obviously I'm supportive of that, seeing that property change from a hotel to nice condos, especially on the beach. So my main concern really, and I think this applies to all of the people in the neighborhood, is the reduction to 2 feet subterranean setback. I don't think that's going to work for anyone. My first thought when I saw it was, this is 2 feet. That's literally 2 feet. I think that should be a recommendation, that we should go back to the original setbacks. We need to have some pervious areas and some stormwater drainage. It conflicts also with our dune protection, and we've got to have that. We don't have any right now. We don't have any beachfront. We don't have much of anything, especially it's your property. I think that it's important to note that the staff explicitly found that particularly egregious. I like that you're reducing to fewer units. I like that it's less bulky. But the below-grade expansion it allows you to actually develop all the way around. So I'd be interested to hear how you would make changes to that. But I'd support overall, but I do think our neighbors need to hear everything that's going on, because I don't think that they know.
Okay.
So, but I know that you got a public workshop coming, so.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, can I respond briefly?
Sure.
I agree that it seems like it's small on its surface, but to be clear, and the legislation that we are going to clarify is that we can respect a far greater rear setback to the dune overlay. That's very important, that area remain pervious. It's the most natural state. The beach walk is gorgeous, and we want to make sure that that maintains its natural state. The front setback, I think, can be 10 feet. It's less important next to Collins. The side yard setbacks, we're going to work on our site plan, but it's just, I think if you employ best practices for construction, especially in light of the terrible incident at Champlain, that if you use helical piles, for instance, the screwing into the ground versus vibration, tremendous help. And there's also best practices when you do excavate to make sure the soil maintains its compactness for the adjacent properties. And we're going to look at that a lot, but we'll see if we can expand the side yard
2
setback.
feet is just like.
We'll see, but there's only so much room to maneuver, and there's always a balance. It's far better not to have a boxy pedestal parking garage above ground. So when you submerge it, it's at an incredible cost. So you want to try to get as many parking spaces as you can down there. But I do hear what you're saying, and we will look at that and
Great.
come back.
Okay, Scott?
Yeah, and this is a relatively modest FAR increase and height increase. But another question, sort of a general question. When we started FAR increases, they were basically for trying to incentivize workforce, attainable housing, and the like. I go back to the Washington Avenue ones. There were all sorts of restrictions to try to keep it as that. Just today, we heard the Live Local, which was, we're preempted with that, but that has a certain percentage. We also heard the other project on Alton Road, which was an FAR increase, and that was only 50% residential and not, it's debatable how affordable those might be. This one is basically just an FAR increase for luxury housing. And I just wonder, I mean, I don't, is that the direction we're going to go in now with FAR increases?
I think that I don't think that I can live in a 20-story building myself and tell someone else they can't have a 20-story building. I think that would
No,
make
no,
me
no,
a hypocrite.
I don't, look, they could build up to 200 feet now and whatever the FAR increase, and they can do a hotel, they can do a luxury building. My thinking is an FAR increase, that's what we're recommending, and, you know, if that's the direction we're going to go in, I mean, it's,
So that
it
makes
is
the
what it is.
beachfront property, that makes the units that would be above it even more expensive. And I just don't, I don't see any of that. We've got naturally occurring.
Well, to that, let me, I mean, I'm just putting it out there. To that, speaking to that, the existing ordinance for south of here on Collins Avenue, are there any requirements, restrictions in that ordinance to, in other words, how does this one compare to that one?
So this one is substantially similar. The only real difference is the allowable lot size to take advantage of this, which is just a 5,000 square foot difference. And their proffered kind of conditions about a reduction in density and the reduced subterranean setback. So that's not part of the other one. You know, I think you're right, Scott, and I think there's kind of two different things going on here with our, you know, which, well, it's practically a crisis, right? A housing crisis. On the beach, I think we're unique because we not only have an affordability issue, but we have this very, even for the luxury market, we have this very intense desire, and we see this happening all the time for these short-term rentals. So even oceanfront properties, what we're seeing because of the preemptions that the state has handed down to us is that even these oceanfront properties, a lot of the residential units are being used as short-term rentals. So while we're likely not to get the level of affordability for middle-income individuals on the oceanfront properties, what this would do is this would prohibit short-term rental. So it would create more of a residential neighborhood. This is an RM3 residential district, but because it allows hotels, what we're seeing is a proliferation of some new hotel buildings, which is, you know, the previously approved project for this particular site, but also existing properties, you know, where you have people living there, and they may be middle income currently, but then their neighbors are all renting their properties as short-term rentals, and it creates a lot of tension and a lot of kind of undesirable impacts to long-term residents that now have to contend with, you know, all of their neighbors basically renting, you know, nightly. And so this particular set that's really focusing on the oceanfront properties is not necessarily going far to address affordability, but it is going further to address the transient nature of some of these neighborhoods. Our intent with not restricting the density, so we're not going to mandate that they have 150 units per acre, but allowing other people in this area to maybe do higher density because maybe someone will have a business model that does include more moderately priced high-end waterfront units. I mean, maybe these units would only be facing Collins and not have views of the water, but I think we should build that flexibility in case, you know, there's another property owner that has a different business model and isn't going to do 100% ultra luxury.
And we have 13 buildings that have been thrust upon us in North Beach that are nothing but STR. And I have absolutely no problem with having some nice luxury buildings where we are, because we really
I
don't
just
have
bring it
any.
up because that just seems to be the direction we're going in, and I'm
We
look,
just
I'm going
don't
to
have
recommend
any.
in favor of it, because it's basically just an extension of what was done a while ago, and it's a relatively modest
We
increase
just
in
don't have
height
any
and
nice,
FAR.
we need something really nice.
But I just think we need to, you know, be mindful of that. It just seems like that's the direction we're going.
But I want to address Scott's point, because it's valid. He's talking about the hollowing out of our residential population. Like, we're decreasing in overall resident, and affordability is an issue, but I will tell you, if it makes you feel any better, multiple times a week, I'm approached by developers looking at properties on 17th Street, Lincoln Road, Washington Avenue, Alton Road, Fifth Street, wanting some type of upzoning, not for luxury product, for just to put in units, residential units, to start increasing our population again. So it is happening. I don't think the oceanfront is the way for it to happen.
Right.
No,
But
I
I
agree
think
with
there are
that.
other corridors that are built to withstand greater capacity.
I think it's just going to be interesting to see what the neighborhood has to say and what all of the residents have to say. I mean, there's, in this particular area alone, there's 4,900 and some change people. I mean, so I think that's, I just look forward to the next level.
Okay. Any other comments before we move it?
I just wish they would extend the boundaries, but
That's, I think we need to, that needs to be something that we need to address.
I mean, if we're talking about the North Beach district, then let's have this apply to the North Beach district instead of going half and half, but.
Why can't you take it up, honestly, I mean, you've got two other buildings that are right there. I think it's 69 something. There's two buildings, Crystal Suites and whatever it is that maybe they could.
Have you ever gotten into an argument with Debbie Tackett? You don't want to do that. It is, she is
blaming
she is
me
very
for-
tough. She's very, very tough.
What is
Oh, no.
happening?
Laws come out.
You all, as part of your recommendations, you can recommend to the commission a northern expansion of this district.
I would support that, but, again, I'd like to see what the neighborhood has to say too. I mean, I can't speak for everybody. I'm just one vote,
Yeah.
But, I mean, we're trying to elevate.
By putting it as a recommendation, and does it open it up to discussion with the public at that point? So it just kind of helps into maybe, directing them to open up to possibly expanding that.
Yeah, certainly. And this particular application does have a commission sponsor.
Right.
So, we can also approach the sponsor and see if she's interested and, if the planning board makes that recommendation.
Yeah, it's worth
I think right now, we're going to recommend move forward with the way it is. But certainly, I mean, the way this has been evolving, we have been looking at, other neighborhoods to do this. So I think it's not unreasonable to explore expansion further.
I think I do want to include the recommendation that the setbacks from 2 feet be reverted, especially subterranean. Well, that is subterranean. That is subterranean, but
Right.
can we recommend?
But that recommendation will be when we pass on the ordinance.
Yeah.
So we're not doing that today.
Right.
Right,
We're
but I'm
going
just
keep that in
saying,
mind.
it's something
Yeah,
that we need
keep it
to
in
talk
mind.
about.
Yeah, we'll look at it, see
Okay.
what we can do to address your concern.
All right, so we want to defer this to what, July?
I think we can try for June 2nd, which would, and if we're not able to hold the public meeting before June 2nd,
So that'll be the
we'll come
motion. It'll
back to
be
you.
to June contingent on the ability to have a
I don't
public
know
meeting
if we
prior to
can
that.
get,
I feel like Miss
All
North
of
Beach
this.
should make the motion.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
I'm just
We're gonna
thinking,
move-
I'm thinking of calendar days and things like that. Yes, I'd like to make a motion to.
It'd be moving to June,
Move it to June.
contingent on them having a
Contingent
public.
on
Right, and if
getting,
not, July.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Second?
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you,
Great.
guys.
Thank you all so much.
Gracias, amigo. All right. And that was for both 10 and 11,
And I'd
correct?
also like to say, it's been 40 years since anything has been built on that site. There's been 4 different projects that have been approved, so we're ready.
All right, next is item 12, Planning Board File 260830, DRB Administrative Review Procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is an expansion of staff's administrative review authority for certain improvements on properties that are not located within any local historic district or individual historic site. We went through a similar exercise for properties within the historic districts approximately 2 years ago. And that has already been expanded, not to the degree that this is proposing, but again, those are often more sensitive, at least in terms of architectural quality, more sensitive parts of the city. So what this particular ordinance would do is it would expand staff's authority beyond design review board. So it would also clarify certain things that are basically cleanup. If I could just run through really try as briefly as possible, the things that staff, if this ordinance was adopted, would be able to approve administratively. It would include ground level additions. Currently, staff can review and
Guys,
approve
can you
ground level
take it outside?
additions. But there is a cap on the height of what we could approve, which is 30 feet. This draft would expand that to up to 50 feet in height, so that staff could review and approve these additions up to 50 feet in height, even if they are visible from the right-of-way. Additionally, lots that are greater than 10,000 square feet, we would expand the amount of square footage that we could approve from 10,000 square feet up to 30,000 square feet. This is all contingent upon any new addition meeting the required setbacks, because that's not changing, and the required FAR and the maximum height within the underlying zoning district. This draft would expand our ability to approve rooftop additions up to 35 feet in height above the existing roof, including stairwell and elevator bulkheads that wouldn't exceed 25 feet above the roof. This would also provide a bit more flexibility in terms of railing replacement, portico shares, the slight modifications to window design and window openings, as well as some modifications to the storefront regulations. So generally speaking, this would streamline a lot of renovation projects. This would not be for brand-new ground-up construction within our neighborhoods. And it would, any project would also be required to meet all of the underlying zoning requirements. So this would not be really staff granting any, administrative variances or height increases or square footage increases. It just would shift the review authority from the design review board to an administrative process.
Sorry, Debbie, is this strictly residential or residential and commercial?
It would be residential and commercial.
That it, Deb?
That's it. Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Apologies.
Anyone
We
on
are
Zoom?
supportive of this, and we are recommending that the planning board transmit a favorable recommendation.
It's good to me. Anyone on Zoom?
No one on Zoom.
Okay.
Question? So I'm supportive of this. Is there anything that can be done to, I guess, further lessen the regulations that someone have to go to the DRB for if they are working on their personal residence or single-family home? Like, can we take this a little bit further?
So-
Based on, I guess, what you've seen coming in front of the DRB with someone trying to redo their house, something like that.
So a few years ago, the required single-family properties that were, the single-family home properties that were required to go through design review was significant. All properties that contained a pre-1942 home. So we were seeing, dozens every month of properties going through the design review board. The state of Florida has preempted a lot of that. So currently, you still see, surprisingly enough, you still see a lot of single-family homes being reviewed by the design review board. And that's because we have our set of development regulations, which can be waived. Certain provisions can be waived or varied from, subject to the design review board. And, what I thought was initially going to happen, basically what the state legislation did is said, you don't have to go to DRB if you're going to abide by everything in your land development regulations, setbacks, height, lot coverage. But if you want a waiver from those regulations or you want a variance from those regulations, you still have to go to DRB. So that's what we're seeing a lot of, people just going and requesting waivers, which is obviously not a mandate. They're choosing to do that because they want more, flexibility for whatever, development they're proposing. That was actually somewhat surprising to me. That people are willing to go, because you hear that, people complain about the process, it takes so
Right.
long, it's expensive. But people are, voluntarily going to ask for additional
Are there
development
top three
regulations.
items that people are consistently coming back or requesting to go to the DRB for?
I think we see a lot of, well, and we used to see a lot of the understory, but then we removed that requirement. So I think we're seeing the lot coverage more than anything. You know, we can circle back and maybe,
that'd be helpful.
yeah, talk about, and I think that's what we're looking at now. We have been given that direction from the elected officials to take a look at a lot of these to streamline, not only the design review board process, but also the permitting process, right? Because we have very complex single-family home regulations that are challenging to interpret. So I think we're looking at that now, but we could certainly bring, you know, some additional suggestions or a discussion item back to you
So would we,
specific to that.
I guess, would that be a discussion item, or is that just an, you know, other comprehensive plan code amendment, or?
Yeah, I mean, I
guess what
think
would be the
we're
next
working
touch
on,
point?
we're working on bringing more specific amendments right now for the
Great.
single-family section. But you could certainly also have a discussion item, you know, if this board wanted to
I'm in
also
favor.
talk about it.
If there are no other comments, I'd make a motion to approve.
Same. Second.
Seconded by Elizabeth. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good.
And then staff will bring some other, I guess, discussion points, whatever it is.
If you,
to
yes,
further
we can
discuss.
bring back at the next available agenda from discussion about the single-family
He's
regulation.
looking to do a rental in his house.
No, I already did it, so I get the pain points. I'm trying to save everyone else from what I had to go through.
All right, planning board file 260831 extended, to extend temporary conditional use regulations in commercial districts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In February, the City Commission adopted an ordinance allowing for the administrative review of neighborhood impact establishments within 5 commercially zoned areas of the city. This proposed amendment expands the program to include additional commercially zoned areas, including the 71st Street Normandy Drive area has been expanded to Verdun Court, the side streets of Washington Avenue between Collins Court and Drexel Avenue, the side streets of Lincoln Road between Lincoln Lane South and 17th Street, the Collins Park area bounded by Collins Canal, 17th Street, Collins Avenue, and Washington Avenue, 5th Street between West Avenue and Collins Avenue, Alton Road between 14th Street and Dade Boulevard, and 17th Street between Collins Avenue and the east side of Alton Road. As a reminder, administrative review of an NIE includes the following criteria: no outdoor entertainment or adult entertainment, no outdoor areas above the ground level, indoor entertainment limited to restaurants, the establishment must be within an existing building that does not currently have a CUP, and the maximum patron occupancy shall not exceed 750 persons. These temporary NIE regulations sunset on December 31st unless extended by the City Commission, and staff is recommending that the planning board transmit this ordinance to the commission with a favorable recommendation.
Great, thank you. Anyone on Zoom? Okay. Close the public hearing. Any questions, comments?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Such a good presentation, it needed no commentary.
Yeah, look at that.
Okay, and before we get to Yashil's big discussion item,
I'm
Planning Board
nervous.
26083, website advertising for LDL amendments and GU waivers.
Okay, Mr. Chair, last year, the City Commission, in accordance with Florida statutes, adopted regulations allowing land use board applications and commission review of LDR amendments to be published on a county-hosted website instead of newspaper publication. The currently proposed ordinance would allow for the planning board review of LDR amendments and other actions, as well as City Commission review of GU waivers to be published on the same website. Publication on the county website is less costly to the city and allows for quicker noticing. And we are recommending that the planning board transmit this ordinance to the commission with a favorable recommendation.
Seems like another no-brainer. Anyone on Zoom? Okay.
Motion to approve?
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Can we amend this to include notices on some public, I guess, social media or something like that?
What do you mean? Not
Like
sure.
put these notices, instead of it just being on a government website, can we put it on put it on social
do they have
media
it
or
so-
something like that, because I feel like nobody reads any
Does the city have
websites
it?
anymore.
Do you even have an official, like,
Right.
social media?
Yeah,
page?
We do. You know, our communications department has we have
What
a
is it?
X account,
my
we have a Facebook account.
Yeah.
And there, I believe, you know, our policy, which is not a legal requirement, is to advertise, you know, all of the calendars
But this
throughout,
is-
and on Miami Beach TV, and we're on YouTube.
Well, I mean, you can
And,
make a recommendation that
just
they
make a
consider
recommendation?
including social media
Yeah,
posts.
I feel like people don't really look at websites anymore, which says you probably need to redo your website, but
I don't know if that would be as precise in terms of the legal notice requirement, because I know that's regulated also by the state of Florida in terms of how we have to notice public hearings. But I think certainly we can make that recommendation or have, you know, every encouragement for the city to utilize all of its social
We get
media.
notices for planning board, we get notices for all of the, you know, meetings that are taking place. I think, you know, just.
Yeah,
like-
the city does, in addition to notices that are legally required, which is what this addresses, the city does publish meeting notices on, you know, on our website, on our constant contact newsletters, and on our various social media platforms. So if you would like to make a recommendation that the city explore including these types of land development applications and I wouldn't, you know, I think there's an important distinction between notices that are legally required
Right.
and all the additional notice that the city provides
Right.
as a courtesy. But if you'd like to move that the city look at expanding land development notices on social media, then that's something
I just
the
think
board
more
could consider.
transparency is a good thing, and just limiting it to just one or two places that people may not even look at anymore. Social media is becoming more and more popular, and well, not that it's not already, but more is always better when it comes to notices, I would think.
All right, so we have a motion from Michelle, seconded by Elizabeth, with the recommendation that social media be explored as well.
Is that good?
Yep.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that's it for the agenda. Now we have a discussion item on single-family driveway regulations, and Michelle has a big presentation.
Well, what we're going to pass out, Jake right now is passing out the current regulations. I'm going to kind of briefly explain what I think the issue is, and then the board can discuss and ask any questions or make any recommendations. So, when you look at this section that governs driveways within single-family zoning districts, if you look at G3, it says the maximum width of all driveways at the front or side facing a street property line, including access driveways from the right-of-way, shall not exceed 30% of the lot width. And in no instance shall the driveway be less than 9 feet in width. So what's happening, and this was a good observation, what's happening is if you have a lot that is less than 60 feet wide, which we have many, you know, we have a lot of 50-foot wide single-family lots, because of the 30% and that minimum 9-foot width, okay, so if you wanted a circular driveway or 2 access points, that would equal 18 feet, would be the minimum. That exceeds, if your lot is less than 60 feet wide, that 18 feet would exceed 30%. Right. So basically, what this does is it prohibits any single-family lot that's less than 60 feet wide from having that kind of two-way driveway access. It is very limiting, and it is something that may not be necessary, because we also have, in addition to this requirement, we also have a minimum pervious area for your front yard.
Especially with the porous surfaces that
For
are
the
mandated.
porous surfaces, so we already have those percentages for the required front yard.
Correct.
So maybe this is reducing flexibility for people, and not entirely necessary to achieve, this permeable front yard area and landscaped area, because another section of the code is already governing that.
Yeah, and I think, and this is definitely the specific language in the code that I think we'd have to work with, so hats off to you all for actually, I just brought up an issue and you found exactly what the
Yeah.
problem was. But I think especially on some of the less trafficked, side streets. So let's say where I live, it's Adams, Meridian, Michigan, Jefferson, Nautilus, and then you have the Royal Palm, Post, all that. With a lot of these new construction homes, you have essentially just, that you can only park 1 or 2 cars pulling right in. There is no circular driveway. And then on top of that, they also put the no parking on grass. They're blocking the swales with the rocks. So they don't have any room to park in their driveway. And then if, God forbid, they have one person come over to visit them at their house, they're now parking in the street. So I've had people, especially around, the Mid-Beach area, who have come to me and say, hey, we're driving up and down our blocks. What was supposed to fit 2 cars going 2 different directions is now essentially 1 lane. And this is actually, if God forbid, there's an emergency vehicle, they can't get around. And I think that that's something that we have to take a look at. I think removing this language and increasing is going to help. But I think that, and maybe this is discussion item part 2, but we have to look at who is ultimately responsible for the swale and how can we ensure that people are not blocking that swale, which is ultimately preventing people that could park there from parking there, which otherwise creates congestion and major blockages on the actual roadway. So, I don't know where we take it from there or what we can do.
Well, you're certainly, as the planning board, you can make recommendations to the mayor and city commission that they explore amending, the land development regulations.
Okay.
We could certainly request more information. We could invite Public Works to the discussion about the swale areas for a future meeting. It's really.
I'd like to make a recommendation, at the very least, that the language in 3, I don't know if it's removed or it's increased. Let's remove it, with the goal of ideally promoting circular driveways, which can accommodate more cars and ideally otherwise moving cars that are blocking the roadway. And then second of all, I don't know if it's a discussion item or having the city commission look at it, who is ultimately responsible for maintaining the swale, and how can we prevent property owners from blocking use of the swale, which is, again, creating additional congestion in those, public
Right now, too, with all the
roadways.
shading that they've sort of, because I know.
Yeah, also true.
I see in the Venetian right now.
Great
so
call.
Now they're.
You're right.
Right, now they're requesting that you plant trees for shading, and so we're losing all our swell, so we end up with the cars in the street.
Right, so you have the trees there, which I understand, I get
Well, I
that.
understand trees when you're walking around like Lincoln Road and all those
Yeah.
places, but you're in a neighborhood where
Well, and-
where you can control the vegetation on the property. but
Not
the
only
swell
that,
should be kept free.
if the city's gonna plant a tree, you can plant a tree on the 2 sides of the swale instead of,
Keeping
right
it
in the
open.
middle.
Correct.
But ultimately, it's definitely
with you.
removing a lot of the parking space.
It's been messing us up a
My
lot.
neighbors have come to me saying, hey, is there anything that can be done? It's definitely an issue for, in case there's a life emergency, whatever it is, emergency vehicles. Ideally, it's something that can be worked on.
It's like don't plant trees in the middle of the swale.
Yeah, and what we can do as your staff members is I can reach out to, it'll be Green Space and Public Works to get additional information. We can also invite them, to a discussion at the planning board.
You can, but at the very least, I'd love if we can send something to the commission for removing 3.
Yes.
And ideally also, whether it's an additional discussion item or an action item, clarifying who's responsible for the swale, making sure that it's open use, and moving cars off the street.
It's so many layers between the control of the driveways, between the
Correct.
planting on the swell, between no parking
Yeah,
on the street. they're not wide
unfortunately, it's
enough,
just
and-
gone to where it is
Right,
now
right,
over
right,
years.
right.
So,
Okay.
so
So
we
is that a
follow up
motion?
with this, is that?
Yeah, if you're gonna make a formal recommendation to the commission, a motion and a second would be,
There's my motion.
okay.
I'll second it.
All right. All in
Okay.
favor of this recommendation?
Aye.
All right, we will
opposed?
transmit that to the mayor and city commission as your recommendation, and I'll bring you back more information about the swales, and we can go from there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we're adjourned. Quick question, you know how these private parking lots that they're opening up to the residents, A lot of people go there thinking it's a city lot, and they put in their app, and then they get a $70 ticket. Is the city looking like
So
a
there
big
is-
sign that says not a city lot? It happened to me the other day, because,
They are required to post signs under
yeah, but they're
state law
not
and our
really,
code, and
they
if anyone's
almost
not,
look like city, yeah, they look like city signs.
if there is a parking lot that you think is not complying with the requirement, you can call.
Oh, no,
code
they have
compliance.
signs, but they look like city signs.
But they may not be complying with the strict letter of the requirements, if
Oh.
you know.
What is that? What's the strict letter? What do they have to do?
I can get you that, I don't know off the top of my head,
Yeah,
I can
'cause
get you that
there's one-
information.
There's one,
Yeah.
you know where
Yeah,
Soup Supply is?
Brian asking for a
Yeah.
friend.
No, it's me, I went to.
There you go.
I went to Soup Supply, and there's a lot right there. And I
Yeah.
thought it was a city lot, I got like a $75 ticket. for
Yeah.
being there for 10 minutes. It's insane.
Yeah.
And it's just because